Welcome to another episode of SANDCITYSPORTS. How's everybody doing out there on this Wednesday evening? How you doing? Hope it's going well in your neck of the woods. Wake up, get up. It's the first of the month. Get up, wake up. First of the month. Get up, wake up. First of the month. Wake up, get up. All right, we got to go around. Let's get it. IG is looking good. Okay. Let's get it. USA. Yes, indeed. USA. Yes, indeedy. Facebook is good. What's going on? All right. I see the Twitter. Rocking and rolling on Twitter. Let's come back. Let's get over here. Get the Facebook in order. Excuse me, I already said Facebook. YouTube is in order. And Twitch is in order. Yes, indeed. Phone, turn that volume off. But first and foremost, we start with the basics. Reach out to folk, let them know they're welcome. Just like you're welcome if you happen to be in the area. Woo! Is that my man Chris? Chris is in the building. You know I had to, man. Chris, you know I had to. I was coming back from the men's league game. I was on the way back from the men's league game. Good summer league hoops, right? We getting rocking right now on the Cape. It's getting rocking right now. So got to the summer league game. We played our best game of the season. Came away with a W. Guys played well. Guys were committed. Put the effort forth in the defensive end. Shared the ball. Good role acceptance. Good team. So it was a real positive experience. We were 0-4. I don't mind telling you. We speaking facts. And then we got the dub tonight, and we got a good dub against a good team. So we want to build on that momentum, right? So I was taking in some of this, you know what I mean? I was taking in just the atmosphere, you know what I mean? I put on my Fox Sports Radio. Shout out to the Odd Couple. Shout out to Rob and Kelvin and Rob G and, you know what I mean, Alex, the whole crew. We don't play it. Hey, we congratulate on SandCity. We congratulate. I throw the Odd Couple on, you know what I mean? I'm on the ride back. Jaylen Brown traded to Philly? For who? Embiid? For Edgecombe? For Maxey? Chris, what's going on, man? Yeah, man. So we ain't beating around the bush. All right, Chris, take off, man. Take off. You know what I mean? This is the gift, right? And before I even put y'all gonna do this on Bobby Bonilla Day? Y'all gonna do this on Bobby Bonilla Day? What did Omar say? No shame, them ninjas, you feel me? Huh? Y'all doing this on Bobby Bonilla Day? No shame, them ninjas. Like y'all disrespected the Sunday truce. This is crazy. Disrespect Bobby Bonilla Day like this. Brad Stevens, man. Man. It was all good a week ago, man. It was, man. I got to, you know what I mean? Y'all see your boy. I'm trying to keep my hair black, folks. They're trying to turn my hair gray. I don't even know, right? And you know what I'm saying? This is beyond hot takes. I got so much fire right now. There's so much fire that's going on. It's just going to have to be what it is. It is what it is. Okay? I'm coming at you from all angles with this. Chris, anybody else, you're willing to jump in. All right? Here we go. Bottom line for me, end of story. Here's what it comes down to. Here's what it comes down to, people, in the year 2026 of our Lord. Okay, the old English. Here is what it is. You, Brad Stevens, could not handle a brilliant, I didn't say intelligent, I said brilliant, proud, black man in your organization. You couldn't talk around him. You couldn't talk through him. He wasn't going with your multi-syllable words. You had to engage Jaylen Brown as an equal. Yes, on equal terms. And that is the reason. Losing Mitchell Robinson, hey, it was known that, you know what I mean? And by the way, shout out to Mitchie No Snitchy. I borrowed that. We don't play a hate on Sand City Sports. Check out Knicks Fan TV. Check out CP the franchise and the Knicks Nation in terms of what they're doing. That's borrowed from Knicks Fan TV. Shout out to Cody Glock, longtime contributor. Okay, so the Knicks knew it was going to be difficult to keep Mitchell Robinson. Knew it was going to be difficult. Let me put your question. So this was known on the Knicks. What are the Celtics doing? You already have Cater. Is Cater Chi-Chi Beans? Why are you giving Mitchell Robinson $16, $17 million when you already have Cater, who is a younger version of Mitchell Robinson? Make it make sense. What is going on in Boston? What? Somebody, I don't know. Did somebody stop taking prescription medication? What are you doing? You already have Cater in-house at a discount rate. What do you need Mitchell Robinson for? If you already have Cater, Vucevic just took his talents back to Orlando on a rinky-dink deal. Mitchell Robinson, $16, $17 million? For a grinder? I love Mitchell Robinson. He's injury prone. You know what I mean? He's a good center. Obviously, he was out. He came back. He was a big part of the championship run. Mitchell Robinson is great. I would have hoped for him to stay with the Knicks and continue to compete. But why would the Celtics give this guy almost $50 million when you already have Cater? Makes no sense. I don't. What? Did you just go? Are you just going on Chat GPT? And do we just listen to the machines in terms of what they say and not think twice because they gave you some probability? Well, you know, the probability if you get Mitchell Robinson is 98.75%. And therefore, baloney. You don't need Mitchell Robinson. Never mind what you just did with JB. Never mind what you just did with JB. And we coming into this right now in terms of how we got to where we are. The bottom line for me, the bottom line is Brad Stevens ain't no Red Auerbach. You ain't no Red Auerbach, Brad Stevens, and you told on yourself. You told on. Now, hold on. Let's be clear. Am I saying Brad Stevens is a closet racist? Is that what I'm saying? Am I saying Brad Stevens harbors some inner, animus and prejudice? And no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not. So let's get ourselves straightened out here. What I am saying is what we see in Jaylen Brown is what we see in other instances. Folks, do you realize that the chief of police in Boston, yes, I'm going down this road, and please jump in if you want. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody's welcome. Do you realize the chief of police in Boston was moving into his apartment. We can play the tapes for you. And a next door neighbor called the police on the chief of police in Boston. This happened, folks. It's been reported. Police showed up. It's on tape. Individual. I'm not going to say, I'm going to say individual. Well, what did he do? I just didn't feel comfortable. I just didn't feel safe. It didn't look right. These were the reasons given to the police about the chief of police in Boston who was moving into his okay? This is what I'm talking about. Jaylen Brown, and I'm taking this, we're going all different. He makes people uncomfortable, which is crazy. It's bananas. But it's what the elephant in the room you don't want to talk about. I'm listening to these radios. Well, what is he doing on Twitch? Well, what is he doing with you're deflecting. These are deflectionary arguments for what the elephant is. He makes certain people feel uncomfortable because he's standing 10 toes down. He can talk it. He can walk it. He is not impressed. He keeps receipts. You disrespect him. Okay. Now, hey, you feel that some type of way about me. I feel some type of way about you. And what? And we in the same building. We're in the same organization. We got to see each other every day. Okay. But you showed your hand how you really feel about me. Now you would not, that's the way you want to do things. So that's how we're going to do it. You guys know what I'm talking about. You deal with it in your personal life. You deal with it in your professional life. You deal with it in society. Somebody that you was cool with, that you was rocking with, you know what I mean? You consider this person a friend. They were good peoples, and you would have gone to bat for them. Come to find out they had other things in their mind. They was wheeling and dealing behind the scenes about you while smiling in your face. They smile in your face. They give you a compliment here and there. You thinking, hey, this good people's right here. They good people's, man. I'm happy to be here. I want to invest in this organization. I want to give back. I feel I've been made to feel welcome. I'm ready to go to work. Next thing you know, come to find out, they had other plans. Right? They was on some Machiavelli stuff. Okay? They was on some Sonny in a Bronx Tale type of a way. Okay? Now Sonny was a good dude. Sonny was a good dude. You know what I mean? But better to be loved than feared. Better to be feared than loved. Shout out to a Bronx Tale. Right? Okay? Come to find out your people didn't really value you as people. Okay? Okay. That's how y'all want it. And you know something? You know what makes folks even more mad now that we're on this train of thought? That when you disrespect somebody, call people out their name, undermine their value, okay, infringe upon their character, on and on and on. When you do this, and yeah, we're talking a little bit about race and culture. Jump in, folks. If you think this is too progressive, you're more than welcome. You know where to find me. This is not, clearly I'm just talking, but as I go in, I just want to make it clear, you can jump in at any point in time, and I'm going to go across the cells. But what really bothers people as well, relative to JB and where we're at right now, when you smack somebody in the face, when you put the baby powder in your hand, and you smack them in the face. Now, what are you expecting? What was Rick James expecting? Okay, when he smacked Charlie Murphy, R.I.P. to Charlie Murphy, in the face, huh? You habitual line stepper, Brad Stevens. You habitual line stepper that you are. Habitual. When you put the baby powder in your hand and you smack somebody in the face, what are you expecting? You expecting to get tore up because you earned it with this disrespect. You disrespect somebody who's bigger, stronger. Man, they about to lay them heavy hands on you, man. They about to, what? We about to throw some bows. Hold on, man. I don't want to get, I can't. It's too early, because sometimes when I put my music on, they be blocking me on other. So I'm not putting my Ludacris on just yet. I ain't putting Ludacris on just yet, because sometimes they shut down my Instagram and my Facebook. But it's time to throw some bows, man. It's time to throw some bows, man. These people crazy. This with the disrespect. You know what really makes them mad? JB ain't going to become an angry black man like you wanted him to. So now you're right. He's not going to become the angry black man that you wanted him to, based on how you treated him like a doggone fool. You know what he's going to do? He's going to step back. He's going to use the mind. Yup. You acting like JB wasn't on the chess team when he was at Cal Berkeley for that 1 year. Coming into the NBA, he's too smart. He's too smart. You remember you remember when UNLV, the Running Rebels, all right, beat Duke down by 800 points, right, in the first Final Four, and then Coach K, the pride of Chicago, huh? Coach K, the pride of Chicago. Yeah, it is worse, because Paul George is worse than Anthony Davis by a long shot. Okay, and this is what we're gonna have to discuss, right? Because that was a recent trade, and then this is like along those lines, right? The Luka comparison, you can make it. The Celtics went even lower. Again, Luka, yeah. You mad, right? Guys, we're in the Commonwealth here. What is Boston known for? College town, USA. Even though there's a shifting landscape in terms of college, we got colleges losing. So there's a shifting landscape. By the way, get an education. Get this is not education. This is not right. This is hot media. It's not education. Okay, cold media, book hand, mind activated. That's education. All right. So, irregardless of what's going on with the rise of the machines and data centers in space, all right, you want to be a member of the proletariat? Check out 1984. Shout out to George Orwell. You want to be a pro, all right, where they're just feeding you entertainment all the time to keep you in place, all right, then you can be a pro, all right? I got this on 24/7. Can't go to sleep, right? I always got to check, so I'm no different than anybody else, but it's not education. Okay, cold media. Newspaper, we don't do that as much, but book, page, cold, read. Let your mind develop the imagery and the concepts, right? Rather than just being fed images and concepts 24/7 and we're always reacting. They big mad, Chris. They big mad. Big mad. Yes, TED Talks at MIT, at Harvard, at Tufts, at Boston College, at Boston University, at Emerson. What are we talking about? This is a city known for research and development. And we get an intellectual. Oh, y'all are going down a path right now. Y'all are going down a path right now when we got one guy that you can't stand, apparently. Correct me if I'm wrong. All these arrows being shot. Then we have another individual, and I'm not pulling him in a disrespectful way, okay? Because they're the same. JTJB, Ebony, Ivory, Tomato. They're equal. M.V.P. candidate. What are we talking about? But you have one that is more you know what I mean? One is more of an extrovert. That's the term I'm going to use. I'm going to say extrovert. For JB, JT, more of an introvert, right? Jason Tatum, he does what he does. You know what I mean? He's got his kid. He's happy, you know what I mean? But he's not speaking to issues, and nobody is saying he has to speak to issues. JT is doing JT, and we're good. We're good. He does a lot for the Lou. He does it for the Lou. He goes home. You know what I mean? He does what he does, but he is not as socially active. He might be as socially conscious giving back, but JT is not as socially active as JB. And we see the different narratives. We see the different narratives about the two. The people go out of their way to try to say what they can't say out front because y'all don't want to stand on business in terms of how you really feel about them. Okay? People don't want to stand on business in terms of how they really feel about this man, because if you were to express 10 toes down, I just don't like him. What don't you like about him? I just don't like him. Y'all can't use words like uppity. He's uppity. He's full of himself. He likes to lecture us. He likes to talk down to people. He thinks he's smarter than us. Right? Speak these same, buzzwords. He's woke. He's too woke. He's too woke for us. Well, what does woke mean? Well, you know what it means. No, I don't know what it means. What does it mean? What did he do? I work in education. I respect all teachers. Do what you do. I want to celebrate. But we see a teacher out there, you know what I mean, doing the handshake, you know what I mean, but in class, right? It's beautiful. We see another teacher do it. It's beautiful. Okay? But now the one teacher, well, I don't know if but the other teacher does the same thing. And oh my goodness, they relate to the kids and they're so down to earth. You're using different verbiage, different adjectives to talk about the very same thing. So you're showing some unconscious bias. That's what you're doing. Correct me if I'm wrong, people. Let me check my socials. Because you know what this is. You know what this is. Jump in, folks. But we're starting, we're going to get to we're starting from the root of this. The root. Jaylen Brown. Is he what? Vice president of the Players Association? What? He out here speaking out. Why do we have 60 to 70% of NBA players that's broke 5 years after retirement? Huh? We just had the NBA draft. We love it. Okay? By the way, go ahead and check out At All Cost. We coming into the live period for our preps, our young people, the young boys. See, man, I done gone 22 minutes in this. Chris, I gotta get you a production credit. I gotta get you a production credit, man. We over here. Y'all done came, okay, with this disrespect. I'm over here. I ain't even. Let me get my volume right, man. It's crazy. I gotta stop sharing, Jay. I gotta stop. We ain't even do the intro, man. It's crazy. We ain't. You know what I mean? We're gonna come right back. We're gonna come right back, man. It's crazy. Thank you, Chris, man. It's wild. I know this is emergency episode. Do the business. Welcome to SANDCITYSPORTS. Where's your boy? You can't see it. Where's the production? Here I am. Yo, the kid got the we got an emergency. The Celtics today. They don't know what they want. They done lost their minds in Boston. Lost their minds. Did the cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Come on back, man. Come on back. Okay, this is out of hand. Shout out to the World Cup. Go. We had the emergency episode. We started with JB. Shout out to Team USA. Thank you. We're not doing it 3 times. Thank you, Chris, man. I ain't even do the intro, man. We ain't even get that SandCity for the people. Okay, I'm back now. 20 minutes in. Okay, that's when the intro had to go down. We got to come back to JB. We haven't even scratched the surface in terms of in terms of this situation. Haven't even scratched the surface. Okay, appreciate that, Chris. Per usual, the Mi Casa Su Casa adding the good marinara. adding that good marinara to the program. We in the building, folks. We're right. It's summertime. We in the building. Come through. All right. But before we even get, I'm just establishing for me what is the foundation of this entire saga. It's that people. And when I say people, I mean Brad Stevens. Yes, you, Brad. I'm talking to you. And if you got a problem now, right? Then there's a problem because you what do we say? Don't start nothing, won't be nothing. You really started something here, Brad Stevens. You did. Because I can't understand how we go from feast to famine in a city that's supposed to be, we're supposed to be the enlightened ones. The right? We're supposed to have that enlightenment. Enlightenment. I ain't gonna use the illumin other word for the secret, whatever. I'm just saying enlightened. That's what I'm saying. That's what Boston, of course. Okay. You want to, speaking of documentaries, and we know LeBron is getting ready to do a documentary about the next season. I hope it's not his last, frankly, because LeBron's got, he could play 4 or 5 more years. This is just a fact. But he's doing a documentary about the next season. Look for it. It's going to be good. Right? But speaking of documentaries, shout out the smartest guys in the room. The smartest guys in the room. Just shout out. Oldie but a goodie, right? This is about the Enron disaster, which is about a quarter century old. And we've had subsequent financial disasters, and there's good documentaries about that. But shout out the smartest guys in the room. Right? You don't have to think twice about certain people because they're just, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I have this great degree. And anytime, and that you say to yourself, right, that person, double check. Double check on that person. Right? People in the fantasy chat can't believe this stuff. Right? They going wild on it. I gotta let them know. I'm gonna let them know. All right, they can jump in. They can jump in on the Sand City if they want. They can jump on it just like y'all folks out there because this is an emergency pod. It's an emergency pod. But what am I talking about relative to Jaylen Brown? Okay, and this disastrous trade disaster is the enlightened people in Boston who were supposed to be the smartest guys in the room. You, Brad Stevens, you. Okay. Come to find out, you had a little issue. Had a little issue dealing with folks, right? That, hey, they could go, right? We're talking about ping pong. They could go back and forth with you. They could talk on your level. They could talk above your level. You know what I mean? Because sometimes when you're, and I see this in the different things, right? Okay, you have some standing, whatever, doctorate, and yeah, okay. First of all, respect to what you do. These jobs are difficult, so on and forth, and it's some of these concepts are very involved. But if you ever get, and this is for anybody, right? Your boy, the Cape Cod kid, I can't change a car tire. That's what I tell the students. I can't change a car tire. Am I proud of that? Heck no. But it's a fact. I can't do it. Never learned, can't do it. I call AAA to help me out. It is what it is. Okay? I could talk to you about the Declaration of Independence, the Emancipation Proclamation, industrial. I could talk to you about that ad infinitum, as you can probably see. I'll talk your ear off about certain things, right? Books, sports, ideas, dates. You know what I mean? Memory, that stuff, great. Vocational wise, I'm not so slick. All right, got to pay for things. Okay, so there's different competencies. Is my point. But anytime you have a competency and somebody else doesn't have that and there's a gap there, but you want to big time them, you want to, right, make them out to feel that there's some sort of mental midget because they don't have, right, whatever competency. For me, sports, history, and you can challenge me on these things versus a vocational competency, right? That's a masking behavior. Not only they're insecure, but they don't know what they claim to know as well as, right, their standing. Because if they did, they would be, if you are very intelligent in a particular field, then you can explain that field to a child and they would understand it. The basic you can explain it to somebody with no background and they would get just an understanding. Are they going to understand the theory of relativity? No. In all of its complexity? No. But they would get the basic gist of what the heck you're talking about. If you're really the real deal. Okay? And not relying on a resume or some piece of paper. If you're the authentic item rather than a charlatan. Right? Okay? And we got some charlatans in Boston. We got some pretenders. We got some fakers in Boston. That's what we have. All right? Anybody feels a different way? Whatever. This take is not changing. And it goes all the way back. I've been talking about you should have never got rid of Jrue Holiday to start with to begin this cycle. Okay? But now it's just absolutely exploded with this Jaylen Brown trade for Chi-Chi Beans. All right? And I'm saying to begin with, in terms of Jaylen Brown, before we even get to the basketball part of it, is you were unwilling. I've used a couple other words. You're unwilling. You meaning the Celtics organization, meaning Brad Stevens specifically, and directly. We're unwilling to have the difficult conversations and to do the hard work that was necessary to bring Jaylen Brown back to Boston, which was the best resolution for this. Best resolution for the Boston Celtics, for the city of Boston. Best resolution. And you know something? Guys, now a little bit on the basketball side. Would Jaylen Brown... Are you kidding me? You send Jaylen Brown approximately 6 hours down the road, I-95, right? If he's in a PJ, what is it? Like, it takes like 20 minutes to get from Logan to LaGuardia flying. You're not even in the air for an hour. So you might, what is it? A 45-minute plane ride from Boston to Philly? So close. You send him right down the road, okay, and you pair him with Tyrese Maxey? You pair him with VJ Edgecombe? You pair him with Joel Embiid whenever he's healthy? Folks, you traded this man in your same division to a team that not only removed you from the playoffs because they were better this year, because you traded Jrue Holiday. You gave away your dynasty. I don't want to hear about the second apron. Celtics fans, where you at? You still want to talk about the second apron? Well, oh my goodness, it's going to be so financially, and these owners get their money back tenfold when they sell the team. That's to start with. So they didn't lose. You're not going to lose any money to begin with when you go into the second apron. A, you win championships, or you at least get to the finals. All right? All the extra revenue, the dollars, so on and forth. You're one of two teams in the championship, yada, yada, yada. Jrue Holiday, Derek White, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. I wanted Crispy P to be here. If somebody had to go, it would be Crispy P. Porzingis. He's doing his thing in Golden State. That four, I'm happy for the Knicks to win the first championship in 53 years. Okay? So the wealth has been spread. But the Celtics, you just squandered. And I've been saying you should have Drew's when you re-signed Jrue, it should have been a 2-year deal versus a 4-year deal so that he could to give yourself the cap flexibility. Oh, he's not going to. Did Draymond just opt out to give the Golden State Warriors some flexibility so that they can do yada? Did that not just happen? Right? People are right. All of the fanfare. I'm just going to give the link to the people that the guys in the fantasy league if they want to jump in. Y'all guys out there in fantasy land, y'all know what time it is to jump in. We going headlong on this debacle. Okay? But yeah, Jalen Brunson, people talk about he gave this up, he gave that up, yada yada yada, on and on and on to the crack of dawn. Where's that conversation? We ain't having that conversation because the Knicks. We're not having that conversation because the Knicks won the first championship in however many years. Let me see if I can invite the people. I think I might have messed up the doggone link. I did, for crying out loud. Let me see if I can just come back. Let me see if I can just come back and put the link in again. No end in sight. All right, good. He's able to put the link in. Don't know if the guys will be able to. I'll come back to them in a couple minutes. Come back to them. Y'all traded JB right down the road in your same division. So who knows what they're going to do with Joel Embiid? I've been on this. The Sixers engine is Edgecombe and Maxey. And now you put JB with them as a forward. You already have your backcourt. Now JB is with them as a forward. Who the heck knows what's going to happen with Embiid? They don't really need Embiid. I said what I said. You have your 1, 2, 3. Maxey and JB on the same team with young Edgecombe coming up the ranks. Embiid, whatever. I said what I said. If Embiid stays and they can be healthy, because that's what happened to the Celtics this year. It wasn't just the fact that, y'all was the number 2 seed and you were going to go to the finals. The Sixers got healthy after they was down 3-1, folks. Can we call it what it is? They got healthy. And if you put Edgecombe and Maxey and Oubre and George and Embiid on the court at the same time playing team basketball, doing it for the team, loyal to the soil, they're better than the Celtics, who don't have Crispy P and don't have Drew Holiday. What is wrong with people? The Sixers were better than them because they traded away Drew and gave away the dynasty. That's why you lost. If you would have had Drew Holiday, you wouldn't have been in that situation. And even if you did get in that situation, being in Game 7, and obviously JT couldn't be there, but then Drew would have been there, who the heck was getting busy down the stretch? Who couldn't maintain ball pressure and coverage? Because Derek White is not a lockdown on-ball defender, and we know that's not Peyton Pritchard's game. Both good players. They're not strong on-ball defenders. They're not all-league defenders. You know who is? Drew Holiday. By the way, folks, excuse me, in terms of these tea leaves that's going on, don't be surprised if Drew ends up in Miami. I know there's certain monies that need to be because they got Giannis and they got Bam. Yeah, let Al go, right? Let everybody go. Second apron this, second apron that. No. If they keep Drew somehow, some way, paying the money, or then Al would have been convinced to stay, take less money, just like LeBron's going to take less money to compete for a championship. You did it to yourself. Period. And we're right. Wick was supposed to be here. Yes, Wick Grossbeck. I'm not putting this on Wick Grossbeck, but he was supposed to be here, win multiple championships, won the first championship. Team went through the roof. He sold high. He was supposed to have, right, when these new owners come in, they say, the NBA always says, and it's going to be interesting with the Lakers because Jeannie sold, but then Jeannie's supposed to be taking care of the operation. By the way, when we talk about these, when people sell, but then you have people that like actually know what they're doing, running the organization, and so you're going to work with the people that know what you're doing, and then you're just going to step back and collect your dividend checks, which are going to continue to go up with the price of sports teams continuing to go bananas, right? So when you have that situation, so I'm going to buy the team and I'm going to pay more, but I know I'm going to get all my money back and some when I sell the team down the road. And I got good people that know how to run an organization. So I'm going to let them do their thing, and I'm just going to sit back and collect my money and like enjoy all of the fanfare of being the owner of this, right? Which is the reason why people buy professional sports teams. You already have plenty of money, but you're lonely. A lot of people are lonely. So there's nothing wrong with being lonely, but that being you get to be around people and have a place and sports does bring people together. It's not a panacea for society. We have problems deeper than sports, but it does bring people together, and it gives us a window in terms of what's possible, and it's a beautiful thing. All right, so I get that. Okay, and you now can make a ton of money and be a part of that, and connect with people and maybe do some philanthropic. So it's you're making money, you're doing good, as in and then you're doing well in terms of making money hand over foot, and that works for the billionaire class. Good, happy for you. All right. Okay, but my point with this is, folks, what am I talking about? I'm talking about since the Celtics sold, and it was supposed to be Wick helping with some of these basketball decisions. Just like Mark Cuban said, he would have never in a million years, in a trillion years, traded Luka Doncic. Not for all the rupees in India or whatever you're talking about. It would have never happened had Mark Cuban been manning the ship. Mark Cuban was supposed to have some say. He didn't have any say, and what do you get? You get a disaster in Dallas that the NBA now has to clean up by gifting them the number 1 overall pick. I said what I said. And now Masai Ujiri's come in. He knows his business, obviously, brings in Dusty May to be his guy, and they're going to try to build it. Okay, but you're building up from scratch, or well, after being gifted Cooper Flag, but you're building up when you already made the NBA Finals a year early when you weren't supposed to, with what you had, which is 2 mercurial, egocentric eccentrics that somehow, and I mean, it's not what somehow, Jason Kidd got through to 2 egocentric, eccentric artists, is the word I'm going to use. Nobody has gotten through to Kyrie Irving since he left St. Patrick's. That's Kevin Boyle, who's currently the coach at Montverde. Nobody. He got coach after coach fired. He got organization after organization in trouble until he came up with Jason Kidd, who got through to him. And what happens when you have a Kyrie Irving bought in? Same thing when you have playoff Rondo, not regular season Rondo, who's throwing things at the screen, breaking the screen, getting in fights with Doc Rivers, and destroying team cultures. But playoff Rondo, who's putting his ego aside and doing it for the good of the team. What do you get? Lakers bubble championship. So Dallas Mavericks, you got Jason Kidd, who gets through to Kyrie Irving and gets through to Luka Doncic. What do you get? NBA Finals a year ahead of schedules. And then what happens after that when Mark Cuban is not in the fold? And the Mavericks ownership is upset because they thought they were going to build a casino right next to the doggone stadium. How's that working out for you? Shout out to Pablo Torre. Huh? I don't even know if we'll get to Malik Beasley in this episode. Y'all seeing the clips that I'm seeing online in terms of his federal doggone indictment and the hot water that he's in. Ridiculous. Team's up 9 with 5 seconds. He sprints all the way down the court, scores a basket. Crazy. So the NBA right now is reckoning with just gambling, right? The integrity of the game. We're talking Chicago Black Sox level stuff. We're not really talking about it because the NBA is doing a great job of deflecting. We're talking about Steve Ballmer, Daddy Warbucks, richest owner in team sports, who put a stadium in Los Angeles, completely usurping the salary cap with no penalty or no investing, nothing. You got Pablo Torre, Harvard man, intrepid journalist, doing all the legwork, and the powers that, and it's the same thing. The Pablo Torre, NVIDIA, right? Nothing to see here, right? Because Pablo Torre can speak right on your level. You can't outmaneuver him, okay? And he's talking about the real and asking hard questions and important questions. And what the league is saying, just like the Boston Celtics are saying, is we're talking about all this stuff about integrity of the game and how the NBA is this pioneer league, and we took it from the basement in the 80s when players were fighting and cocaine and the league was too black and it wasn't marketable, to now NBA players, through the leadership of David Stern, are in the skybox. What are we going? We're going to Seattle for the World Cup, even though they don't have their best player, even though that call was questionable, but I can see we're going to talk a little bit about that. Huh? We're going to the Space Needle. That's where the NBA players are in terms of the celebrity pyramid. They're in the Space Needle at the tippity top in terms of their cultural influence and significance. Does the NBA make as much money as football? Absolutely not. And it's close to baseball, even though baseball is about to go off the cliff with their lockout. But you go from the 80s when people said this league, the model doesn't work, to now it's working out in spades. Okay? Because of the leadership of David Stern. What does this have to do with the doggone Jaylen Brown situation? Okay? When the salary cap was usurped, mid-90s, Minnesota Timberwolves, David Stern swooped down on them, iron fist. Took the fist out the freaking velvet glove, and clocked the Minnesota Timberwolves silly. And we haven't heard anything. He smacked the taste out of their mouth. Knocked them in the next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And we haven't heard one thing about people usurping the salary cap till now. Adam Silver, excuse me, different type of leadership. Is the league profitable? Is there a lot of great things that are going on? Does he have a lot of good things? Yes, he's a good commissioner, great commissioner, all that stuff. All right, but he is deflecting and just moving, and there's just no resolution to this stuff. None. Where you just usurped and now Kawhi goes to Toronto? Is that like the penalty that he gets to go back to Toronto? By the way, the Clippers did well in that, bringing in Brandon Ingram, bringing in Grady Dick, and draft capital, building what they're building up with the new generation. Clippers are a first-rate organization. Lawrence Frank in the front office, Ty Lue on the bench, Steve Ballmer running the show. First-rate, built a new stadium, more bathrooms than any other stadium in the world. You know how it's set up like a soccer stadium so people can jump up and down and cheer. Out of this world. What's the point of having a salary cap? What is the point? There's no point. What's the point of a second apron if you're just going to have side deals? It completely defeats the purpose of everything. And we're not even having that conversation. Pablo Torre's having that conversation, doing his great intrepid journalism with his outstanding platform. The league, the entity, the multi-billion-dollar printing money, there just seems nothing to see here. That's how they handle it. Okay, which is not appropriate. It's not right. A whole bunch of other things. Even though Adam Silver, can two things be true at the same time? Adam Silver is a wonderful commissioner. Great. And he's also completely botching this gambling salary cap situation. Plural. Folks, you see what I'm saying? These two people climb the dog on Empire State. Guy proposed. I mean, damn, dog on it. I can't match that. It is what it is. And not even close. But shout out to those people. I hope it was safe. It was bananas. Get that on the screen a little bit. Crazy. Right? What is the situation back to JB here? Okay? Ownership. Why did the Luka Doncic debacle happen? They wanted to build a casino. There was some, I don't know what happened. Can't speak, but there was some sort of understanding. They pay this high dollar to buy the Dallas Mavericks from Mark Cuban. They're casino people. That they came in, you knew who they were. NBA is going towards gambling, so they're like, hey, we know the casino business. That's how we make our money. Y'all are going with the gambling because that's how you're making your money as well. Let's get it going. Let's get it popping. We want a casino next to the stadium. They go to the casino. They go to a ball game. They come back to the stadium. You know what I mean? That's what we're going to do. Folks in Texas said no. You know, and they was like, what's up? You know what I mean? And the next thing you know, Luka Doncic is traded for nothing. Huh? For nothing. Oh, excuse me. No disrespect to AD. No disrespect to PG. Okay? You look at what the Knicks got from Mikal Bridges. And by the way, right now, you're not talking about that. Okay, SANDCITYSPORTS has been 10 toes down on La Costa Nova, the Nova Knicks. From, right, division of the Knicks, Leon Rose, Worldwide West, bringing in JB, loyal to the soil, going to be a team guy. No, I don't want a superstar that's pampered and entitled. I don't need a diva. I don't need the Diana Ross and the Supremes. I want somebody that's 10 tones down on the process and working for a true four-star general, Tom Thibodeau, to build himself up into a winner. We know this. JB did that, and we started to build. Okay? Ragu was doing his thing in Golden State. Come on back and build. Before that, Cam Reddish was in between. He's always been kind of talented but not motivated. Let's bring in Josh Hart. Not as talented, much more motivated. And you started, that was the building. Cat saw this from Minnesota, what was being built, and now Cat says, I want to, okay. But, and then Mikal Bridges, which while we had 3 of the 4 La Costa Nova, we knew that we needed Bridges. He's right there, you know, in Brooklyn, across the river. You know what I mean? People we gave up so much. Okay, y'all ain't talking about them picks now, are you? You ain't talking about no picks. Which, back to this JB situation. I don't give a dog. Paul George, you traded Jaylen Brown for 2 first-round picks. Yeah, that's a intentional silence right there. You traded JB for 2 first. You don't know what you're gonna get with Paul George. Does Paul George even want to come to Boston? Is Paul George, never mind the injuries, you know what I mean? He's much less compatible with Jason Tatum than Jaylen Brown. Do we know Paul George to be a lockdown defender? Right? He's a big, shooting, injury-prone, PED-taking. He's like an older, broken-down version of Jason Tatum with less of a defensive identity. who doesn't necessarily want to even be here. On the basketball side, as people are saying, Chris, others, this is outrageous. Brad Stevens needs to be put on probation. We need an investigation. It is bad. Bad on the basketball side. So much to the point, folks. This looks like a doggone tantrum. Okay? And I ain't holding back on this. Brad Stevens, you're supposed to be the smartest guy in the room. That's where I mentioned that before I went down this other tangent. You're supposed to be the smartest guy in the room. You are a good dude. You did sign a 10-year extension with Butler after going to back-to-back natties. You didn't want to go to Indiana. You didn't want to go to UCLA. You didn't want to go to Michigan. You didn't want to take these marquee jobs. You said, I'm staying loyal to the soil. And then Danny Ainge came through with a Godfather offer and swooped you away from Butler. I don't want to hear about Hugo. I don't want to hear about Schleichman. They are role players. That is Boris Diaw. That is Jordan Farmer. That is Howard Isley. They are complementary pieces on a good team. That's Leon Poe. That's Big Baby Davis. And what you're saying, Chris, is what makes me even more furious. It's this idea that because, right, that organizations win championships, that Jerry Krause, I have the greatest player in the history of team sports. And I'm going to discount that because of some guy in a room crunching numbers. I was 10 toes down on Bill Belichick when Tom Brady left. I will eat all of that crow. I will eat it. I thought it was Belichick that created the parameters. Shout out to TJ U.S.M.N.T. Shout out to Rob Parker and the Lemon Pepper Podcast. TJ U.S.M.N.T. who does a great job. Also, shout out to Up On Game. He was 10 toes down. Players, it doesn't matter how good of a chef you are. If you don't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get down to the market to get the best products, your stuff ain't going to be top of the line. I don't care how good of a chef you are. If you don't got the ingredients, it ain't popping. You need the ingredients and the knowledge to put together that marquee. The good marinara, the good angel. Hey, you know what I mean? When the moon hit the sky like a bigger pizza pie, it's amore. When you have Adam, I forget the second line, but you know what I mean, people. You're in love. We got steaks, we got veal, and the seafood's ideal. All right, if you're going to make that good al dente, you need the ingredients. Traded Jaylen Brown for 2 first-round picks. The Knicks traded Mikal Bridges for 5 or 6 picks. Who cares? They won a freaking championship. And by the way, this is the same person, Brad Stevens, who was supposed to be like, duck them picks. He was willing to give up picks to get talent. He gave up draft capital to get Derek White. And now you, of all people, trade Jaylen Brown for... You're in your feelings, right? Okay? I'm coming down. I'm hammering that home point. I want to hammer that. I need that point needs to just be that this comes down. It is wild to me. Wild to me. Right? This is the equivalent, in my mind, of George Steinbrenner having a private detective, right? Who was it? Who was the baseball player? I got to look this up on the other, right? And by the way, folks, we cooking right now. It's midi over here. I know you know what I mean. We're gonna be cooking. I mean, we got Big Ben coming up. You know what I mean in about 2 hours. So I don't like to go into, you know what I mean. But we got to cook as long as we can here. It's Bob. Actually, and Bobby Bonilla Day is over, folks. It's midnight here. I ain't even get to Bobby Bonilla, which we will. We're gonna get to Bobby Bonilla. But Bobby Bonilla Day, I couldn't even. I mentioned it in the beginning, but this says taken up. Right? So I have to talk about Bobby Bonilla Day while it's no longer Bobby Bonilla Day on the West Coast. I got to talk about, you know what I mean? Facts. Was it okay? Reggie Jackson, or was it, I want to say Dave Winfield? It might have been, I think it was Dave Winfield. Because Reggie, was it, let me get the hold on. Yeah. Yeah, good take. That was after Reggie. Reggie was the 3 homers in the 70s. This was 80s going into the 90s. It was Dave Winfield that he had the private investigator on, right? We're talking Cold War level paranoia, folks. Cold War. Yeah. Yeah, Dave. It was Dave Winfield. Reggie 70s, Dave Winfield was in the 80s. And baseball said you got to go. You got to go. 2-year ban. This is right. You got to go, George. Subsequently, what did George Steinbrenner do? He came back. He took a step back. Shout out to Brian Cashman. He let his baseball people actually run the team. He just sat back, collected his money, and was the luminary. Respected, all that stuff, but he didn't have to have his fingers on everything. What did his baseball people do? You heard about Derek Jeter? Heard about Jorge Posada? Heard about Andy Pettitte? Heard about Mariano Rivera? He let his baseball people do their jobs, right? And they got their 3 championships, late 90s, so on and forth. Before that, okay, he was on some CIA, KGB, right? Trying to control everything for everybody, and it got out of control, and he had to just go away, right? And I see a through line here with the Celtics. I see a direct through line. Yes, a direct through line. Yeah, something might be brewing with Boston involving. So why didn't you trade Jaylen to Utah for those players? We're supposed to have Lauri Markkanen was supposed to be going to Detroit to team up with Cade. Right? They got John Collins, who can, does so. They got John Collins, but I'm so Lauri, they got 18. They being Utah. Let me get my semantics in order here. Let me be a little bit more crisp in what I'm doing. So Utah has the young Lions. They have Ace. They have Peterson, Clayton. Right? They got all these young Lions who are under contract. So I might want to keep Lauri. I don't know why Utah, they finally gotten the picks that they, in Peterson. So they've been tanking since Will Hardy got there. And they could have been competing all these years. And I'm fortunate. Thankfully, the NBA, with their revised draft rules, can get rid of this. Utah could have been in the play-in competing. Will Hardy's a good coach. They have young Lions. They could have been competitive. They've been a dumpster fire. They've been a bottom feeder, as in the Marianas Trench. Okay? For what? Okay, you got Ace Bailey, you got Peterson, 2 guys that weren't loyal to, you know what I mean, came with some attitude and didn't want to go there and yada, yada, yada. And there's a through line there as well, folks. There's a through line there as well to this Boston situation and the disaster that Brad Stevens is overseeing. Absolute disaster. We can come back to this whenever we want, folks. I was wrong on Belichick. I'll eat the crow. Can I get some mild sauce? I was at Taco Bell the other day. I got Taco Bell on deck after this episode. Heated up, ready to go. Can I get some mild? Can I get some sweet and sour? Sweet and sour is Wendy's, but you know what I mean. I will eat all the crow. I am not. This is how I feel now. If this turn, I will still be angry about this, just in terms of how it's gone down. Maybe Brad Stevens, he might be the maestro. He might have it in mind. I think this deal is great for JB. It works for JB. I'm on a contender immediately. I got junkyard dogs. Tyrese Maxey, Calipari Tradition, Edgecombe from Baylor. That's their three. Embiid, it's, you know what I mean? He can stay or he can go. He's not really, and with Embiid, it's similar to LeBron. We'll see how he handles this. Because LeBron could have stayed with the Lakers and competed for a championship. He could have. Now he's talking about taking less money to go play with the Golden Girls in Golden State. I said what I said. They did the ARP Warriors. All right, fine. Okay, against the Young Lions in San Antonio, against the Young Lions, Oklahoma City, against a Lakers team that's now going to have continuity, no more drama. I like the Walker Kessler move. Walker Kessler is a dude, right? We don't need big guys in basketball anymore. We're just going to run around and shoot a bunch of threes. You don't need a post presence, somebody to rebound, somebody to eat, somebody to block shots, somebody to get those paint points, somebody to dump it down to that can hit a couple free throws. That we're just going to run around on the perimeter and shoot threes, right? No, you got to have balance. And Walker gives him that balance. He's going to be a great teammate. He's going to set great screens for Luka to free him up, to get busy. Okay? Reeves can be the two. You got to maybe bring in another scorer. He's going to, right? Well, right? Lakers are giving 400 to the, yes. 3 guys that are about the process that are going to work together rather than 3 guys that have high 2K ratings that won't speak to each other. Back to Utah and connecting to the JB situation. Folks. Ace Bailey didn't want to go to Utah. Where is he playing basketball right now? Darren Peterson didn't want to go to Utah. Where is he playing basketball right now? Danny Ainge, I'm too old for that. I ain't having that. You're going to play basketball for the Utah Jazz. You're going to work hard. You're going to be a good teammate. You're going to make a ton of money. You're going to have a very good life. People talk about, is Utah, I visited Utah, when I was in college, learned, the culture, right? Mormon society, more conservative society. Okay. Not as much to do as other locations. AJ DeBance's from Brockton, man. He went to Prolific Prep, California. Plenty to do. He went to Utah. He went to Utah Prep. I never heard of Utah Prep until AJ DeBance landed there, meaning they paid top dollar to get AJ DeBance there. And then more top dollars were paid to keep AJ DeBance there with the Jazz. With BYU. He's from Brockton, folks. And he spent time in California. AJ DeBance was in Utah for two and change years. He had no problem with Utah. Scenic, plenty to do. I'm a celebrity. Everybody knows my name, right? Right? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is completely content in Oklahoma City. Kevin Durant was content there too. Oklahoma City, the smack dab middle of nowhere. But you're royalty in these smaller, like, what are we talking about? Aaron Rodgers played in Green Bay for the majority. What is in Green Bay besides the Packers? It's a small community. You're making millions of dollars. And you're royalty. And you live a very comfortable, privileged life. So you're going to do that. Down the road, you may want to leave. Obviously, you know what I mean? We have the right to match and all the rest of that stuff. But the point is, Ace Bailey, Darren Peterson, they're playing in Utah. They're going to have good careers, hopefully, right? And that's just the way it's going to go. And they didn't want to go, but they're going. So now back to the Boston Celtics in this situation with Jaylen Brown, who was traded away for Chi-Chi Beans, less than Chi-Chi Beans. Brad Stevens could have said the same thing to Jaylen Brown. You don't like me. I got my issues with you. You're going to come in here. And by the way, folks, okay, I say things and I say, by the way, I'm sorry that, we have this thing in baseball, and the Red Sox were like this for a time. I remember because that's the first I heard the statement uttered. Our socials are good. I appreciate license to Mill joining on the on. I appreciate you, license to Mill, joining. Jump in the comments if you have anything. Appreciate you on the IG. Yeah, folks, we here. We in the building. Join the conversation. Right? So Jaylen, you don't like me, Brad Stevens. I got my issues with you. I don't know what the issues are. I think this is complete overreaction, but it's going to be a little bit hostile in here. Now, my quick aside to the Boston Red Sox, right? Which now the team is rebuilding and all the rest of that stuff. But I'm talking about the Red Sox. They used to say the Red Sox. Now I got to get this right because I'm a referee, so I use you know what I mean. But this is the smaller number, right? Because we read left to right, and so the 2 and the 5. This is how I present the 2 and the 5. They said the Red Sox were 25 guys and 25 cabs. 25 guys, 25 cabs. Meaning we don't have camaraderie. We don't have kind of, connectedness. We're not a unified group. I don't like you, you don't like me. We're not talking. Okay? It's not going to be right? You hear George Clooney and talk about this when he did his movie about the artifacts that they went and got, and great cast, Bill Murray and all, I think Brad Pitt. And one of the things George Clooney says is, I think Matty Damon was in that movie. He's like, you do a movie, you're going to be with these people for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, right? And so you want to you want to have an experience where you're with people that, where we can have a collegial, collaborative, encouraging environment where we're not, balling up in a fist, and gritting our teeth to go to work, to be around people that we don't like, that don't like us, and there's not a good ambiance. It's tense, it's distant, it's suspicious, right? That's the environment you're going to go to work for. You got to be on your toes. You walk past people, nobody says anything. You go into communal areas to get some coffee, to use the refrigerator. Nobody says anything. Not a hello, not how's it going, not how, you know what I mean? We just isolated in a communal space versus you work with people. How you doing? How's it going? How was your men's league game? You guys get the dub? Oh, good. How's your team? Your team's going all right? You got some new guys. Yeah, I've been through that myself. This guy couldn't make it, and then, but you want to try to get guys, and guys have to come in, new guys have to come in, we have to gel, and yeah, we have some tough losses, and then guys want to leave, but then they're going to stay, right? You're just talking, supportive, but I'm not in your business. I don't need to know all your details. If you want to share something, share something. If you don't want to share something, don't share it. We work together, okay? I'll talk to you a little bit, if you could help, if you're willing to help, you know what I mean? Sometimes people want to know stuff about your life, but they don't want to help you with stuff. You know what I'm saying? Y'all want to know my business, but you ain't help me on no business. So why do you want to know if you can't help me? Right? Y'all need to know my business, but you ain't contributing. What they say, what Snoop said, everybody got their cups, but y'all ain't chipped in. Y'all ain't chipped in nothing, but y'all got your cups. Right? So you work with folks, man. You know what I mean? I'm not in your BI. If you want me to know something, if I could help you, I'm gonna do it. Can you, what I mean? Good. If I can, what I mean? I can't move mountains, but if I can help you, I'm going to help you. And maybe I hope it's true vice versa. You can help me out with this. Boom, boom. We good. You don't owe me nothing. I don't know you nothing. Let's continue to do the work. We're here to do a job. I work in education. It's about the kids. It's about the community, about the family, about the society, the next generation. Let's do the work. We have a job. We're fortunate to have a job. Shout out to Larry Bird, who was a trash collector. We got that slide for you. Let's do the work. What does this have to do with Jaylen Brown, folks? Danny Ainge has a situation in Utah where it's a little tense. It's not necessarily going to be congenial. You're not going to have a camaraderie off the bat because you have these significant players, their star players of the future, that are a little bit reticent about being in Utah and being in a different environment, and they're not coming in like a Joe Burrow who went to Cincinnati and said, "Hey, I'm in Cincinnati. We good. We're gonna compete for championships because, like, because Jolton Joe is here, and that's the bottom line. I'm coming in with good energy, with positivity, with enthusiasm, with motivation, good morale, and I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna walk the walk and talk the talk. Get behind me, right? A true leader, all right." Right? That's not standing behind people for them to pull him, but that's walking point. And they're following his lead. I walk point as a leader. Alexander the Great walk point. Genghis walk point. Now these are two of them, you know what I mean? I saw a meme, not a meme, but a graphic about Genghis Khan today. You might get that. We'll get that. Talking about the empire. Back, I didn't realize, learn a little bit about him, and difficult background. His father was poisoned when he was young, and he was kidnapped, and he ran away, and then got married. His wife was kidnapped. He had to get her. It was rough and tumble in Mongolia, and then he united the tribes, and then they just expanded. But saw a statistic that he conquered so many territories that like 400 million acres was reforested because of their conquests. That reduced the CO2 count on the planet. There's a 21-year period, 21 years of conquest. But 1/10 of the world's population was wiped out during those times. So difficult. Very difficult. What does that have to do with Jaylen Brown, folks? These people walked point. They didn't stand behind screaming at people to pull the load. They were out front pulling the load. All right? And that's what you would like to see in your star players. But if you don't see it in your star players, then you have to be the one to set the tone, set the culture, set the example, i.e. Danny Ainge in Utah. That's further dirt on Brad Stevens' name. He was unwilling to do that. Right? The Celtics next year with JB back was going to be 15 guys, 15 cars. Or it would have been JB, and this is what I keep coming back to, bringing back Jrue Holiday. The capologist out there, it's not going to work because of whatever. You bring in Mike Conley. What are we doing here, folks? I said you need a point guard. Okay? Mike Conley is Jared Dudley for the Lakers in the bubble. He's a locker room guy. Right? He's somebody to work with your young guys, like an assistant coach. That's what Mike Conley is. He's not winning you possessions. He can't guard Maxey. He can't guard Edgecombe. Keep going back to this. Okay, and connected to that, folks, I think Jrue Holiday, folks, might be on his way to Miami because they got 18 point guards and Drew's out. And if I'm Jrue Holiday, I'm looking around. Where can I go now that the Celtics have just shot themselves in both feet? And if we can make the money right, and if I can opt out, opt in, which would be interesting to see. But if I'm Jrue, and Jrue would have ended up in Miami a long time ago. He should have ended up in Miami after he was traded from Milwaukee to Portland. But Cronin and Riley had a feud because of Riley wouldn't budge on the Dame deal. So Cronin was like, you know what? Yeah, you wanted to heavy hand me with, you wanted to high hand me on the Dame deal and be 10 toes down. I ain't sending Jrue to Miami. I'm sending to Boston. Good luck with that. Things might have mended. If I'm Jrue, they got 18 point guards in Portland. I want out. What does Miami need? A point guard. Okay. Are they willing to go in the second apron, the money part of it? But I think Jrue's going to go to a contender. Unless, unless they're committed to going small and playing, because Jrue doesn't come off the bench. Let's just stop that. So Jrue, Dame, and Ja. So Jrue would essentially be the third. And Jrue Holiday is so versatile, folks, at 6'4", 220 or whatever, you know what I mean? He can play the 3 easily. Easily. I said what I said. Right? That's more of a Coach K format. Remember Chris Carrawell back in the day? Coach K would, if he had 3 good guards, he would just start all 3 guards. Duhan, Reddick, and I think it was Carrawell on the really good Duke team, right? That lost to UConn in 04 when they had Ben Gordon and Mecca Okafor, right? I got 3 good guards, undersized though they may be. We're playing all 3 of them on the court. You know, obviously Coach K committed to man defense, you know, so you're going to be tough guys. Almost like a Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, and Vinnie Johnson type deal. None of those guys over 6'6". Right, but we're playing them together. And then we'll have 2 bigs. The 04 team, Luol Deng was the, stretch 4. Okay, more of a 3, but he played the 4. And then Sheldon Williams at the 5. Shevlik Randolph got edged out, who was the best prospect in the 02 class. But you come to Duke, you got to be ready to compete every year. He's going to recruit over you. Right? So, Drew to Miami, the Celtics. Well, y'all ain't wanna. I'm gonna speed this up. Disbelief. Speed it up. I've been talking about this for close to an hour and 20 minutes. All right, so let's come. I've gotten to the social, what we call education, the social emotional, or the cultural piece of this, and I've established that. Right. This is, and it's moves like this, folks. I'm going all the way back now. I said Brad Stevens is no Red Auerbach. Red Auerbach empowered Bill Russell. Bill Russell, who was strong and outspoken, right? Like a Jaylen Brown. Okay? No, I'm not signing your autograph. Yes, I am going to partner with people to support our people. Partner with Jim Brown. Partner with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, formerly Lou Alcindor. Partner with Muhammad Ali. All right. Let's get that for you on the screen really quickly. In terms of, I'm talking about the Cleveland Summit. Right, folks? I'm talking about, and I'm making a connection. Yeah. We're gonna make that connection. We're gonna leave this on the screen for a second. But we're talking about difficult conversations and strong Black men. We're talking about difficult conversations and strong Black men, folks. Jump in, join the conversation. Okay? I know it's late, but it's also the summertime. You know your boy, Cape Cod Kid, recently liberated, summer break, after a long school year. A great school year. Dealing with, or better said, working with the best and brightest. I got to get to job, not a got to. I got that get to, not the got to. I get to do my job. Fortunate. Right? Yeah, we're making a connection, folks. This is the Cleveland Summit. Okay, Muhammad Ali said, no, I'm not going to be drafted in this Vietnam War. No, not doing your prize fights and going around and, all right, uproar in this country. How dare you? Okay, not going to serve your country. Who do you think you are? Very strong stance. and who was with him to say, you know something, he has a right to be a conscientious objector. He has the right to be a conscientious objector. And he's going to express his patriotism in a different way. He has the right. Who's there with him? William Felton Russell, Jim Brown, Lou Alcindor, others supporting him, right? Lost 4 years of his prime. Arguably the greatest boxer in history. Gave away 4 years in his prime, standing on business. Expressing his patriotism in the way he sees fit. Won the gold medal, came back to Louisville, could not sit down at a restaurant. Okay? I'm going to be American in the way that I experience this country. Okay? Not the way that you feel that I should experience this country. All right? Talk about this man right here. First African-American coach of a professional sports team in American history. Empowered by Red Auerbach to assume that. Empowered by Red Auerbach to assume that role. Okay? And had one of the most egregious events in American sports history. One of the most. House vandalized, desecrated in Reading, Massachusetts. Something that does not speak to the totality of people in Massachusetts, but is a part of the checkered history of race relations in Boston. Do those cowardly individuals who did that to Bill Russell represent the entirety of Boston, Massachusetts, which is considered the greatest sports city in the country, which I'm proud to have some part? No, they don't. Those handful of cowardly individuals don't represent everybody, but they represent some folks who felt that way about Bill Russell as a strong, independent, intelligent, dynamic African-American athlete who wasn't going to shut up and dribble, who had ideas and perceptions beyond sports that needed to come into the lexicon, that needed to come into our overall conversation. And you can agree with it, you can disagree with it. That's your right as an American, just like it's his right as an American to have his particular views. And the Boston Celtics, when we talk about the late, great Tommy Heinsohn, they would have back and forths on these issues. There's two sides, and they would have the difficult conversations in-house, and that made them stronger. Having the difficult conversations in-house made them stronger. Stronger. All right? And so Bill Russell, the difficulties that he had to go through, okay, during those times, right? It's the reason we lost Jackie Robinson at a very young age, folks. It's my feeling, others' feeling. Because of what he had to go through. He's a human being. Okay? Proud, strong, veteran, human being. Okay? Jump in, folks. Constantly undermining, demeaning, second guessing my basic contributions to society. Right? Jackie Robinson, the first couple of years, he has to be quiet. The next couple of years, no. You have something to say to me? I have something to say to you. You want to get in my business? I'm getting in your business. Okay? Shout out to Ken Burns. Shout out to Unforgivable Blackness. Check it out. Difficult documentary, important documentary about Jack Johnson. Our first African-American heavyweight in America. Okay, brash and outspoken in different ways. Okay? Got a ticket for speeding, $50 ticket. Jack Johnson. All right, I was speeding, $50. Again, in that time, early 20th century, $50, that's a lot of money. Hundreds, it's $1,000 plus. Gave the cops $100. Cop said the tickets were $50. Jack Johnson said to that cop, I'm coming back same way I went. Adios. Take the $100. I'm gone. Right? Check out Unforgivable Black and shout out to Ken Burns. Stanley Crouch, great commentator, writer. He talks about this. Right? The fans, you got all these things to say. And I get it. I'm a sport, but hecklers. When you go beyond sports, when you get personal, when you say things, that's just, it's unsportsmanlike, it's undignified, it's unnecessary. That's not what sports is about. And if you can't be an adult, if you can't be mature, then you don't need to participate if you can't maintain it. Yes, fan does stand for fanatic. I know. We'll talk about what's going on with the World Cup. We'll talk about the team in Uruguay. You can fly commercial. You can fly commercial. The people in South Korea right now, beside themselves. All right? And we'll bring up what happened in Japan. And what did the manager do of Japan? He took accountability. Where are you, Brad Stevens? I can't wait for the press conference tomorrow for some accountability. Okay? Back to Jackie Robinson and how this stuff affects you. Okay? When people are constantly questioning, challenging, demeaning your contributions to society, your existence in a society of which you are a part. Yes, I'm going there, folks. Right? Let's reverse that. Am I going to constantly question Brad Stevens, and undermine what he does, how he thinks, where he goes? Micromanage this individual that has built the Celtics into a championship team. Am I going to quit? Well, Brad Stevens, did he really double check that? Right? I know he's not that experienced. He hasn't been an executive for long. Didn't Brad Stevens coach in college? How long has he been in the NBA? Has he been a coach for long? There's a difference dealing with professional athletes than dealing with college athletes. Wasn't Brad Stevens at a mid-major? And now he's with the Celtics? How do you go from mid-major to the Celtics? Okay. Was that an affirmative action type of a deal? Did he get preferential treatment going from mid-major to the Celtics? Brad Stevens, he's not from the Northeast. He's from the Midwest. You really think somebody from the Midwest can be successful in Boston? From a town like maybe French Lake? Right? Constantly looking, searching, probing for weakness that's not there. That's not there. Brad Stevens has been a stellar coach. Up until very recently, he's been a stellar administrator. And we're fortunate to have him in Boston. Okay? Back to Jaylen Brown and the Cleveland Summit, okay? And how we view strong, intelligent, independent, capable black athletes. I'd be remiss if I didn't note, we only have 9 years of Jim Brown. We only got 9 years of Jim Brown. Why? Because the Cleveland Browns told him, hey, this is the way we do things in the NFL. Jim Brown said, this is the way I do things, period. As the greatest player in this league's history. And you're going to treat me accordingly. Cleveland Browns said no. Jim Brown said, I'm done. Thank you. We should have got 15, 16 years of Jim Brown. Okay. But it's organization. And by the way, when have the Browns been heard of since? I need to pull that into the forefront as well. When have we heard from the Cleveland Browns since Jim Brown left? I know they had Bernie Kosar in the 80s and whatnot. But okay, Jim Brown to Bernie Kosar to what? To March for Arch, where they are currently? Going to tell Jim Brown this is how we do things. By the way, go ahead and check out The Greatest That Never Was, 30 for 30 Gold, about Marcus Dupree. The Greatest That Never Was. Check it out. You treat certain people differently. What did Dan Reeves say? Might have been Mike Shanahan. Shout out to Nightcap. Shout out to Club Shay Shay. I got to check out the Neil Tyson DeGrasse recently on Club Shay Shay. I got to check that out. Doing good work. And then Nightcap with Unc, Ocho, and ISO. Solid stuff. I know they probably on right now. I know ISO got a lot to say about this. They got to be on now. Everybody got to be doing something right now in terms of what's going on in the league. Crazy. And the World Cup, which we're going to get to. We got to get to the culture. We got Woods Hole Film Festival coming up, African American Film Festival coming up, summertime living is good. We got Bobby Bonilla Day, which still is on in the Central Time. In the way we got a lot. We going in tonight. Okay. Okay. Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he did not lose. He didn't lose any part of his career for being an intelligent, independent, dynamic, impactful African American. He didn't lose any part of his career. Jim Brown lost the second half of his career. The greatest football player that ever lived at that time, or maybe to this day. For this, Ali loses 4 years in his prime for being a conscientious objector. Bill Russell doesn't lose any of his career, but his house is vandalizing, a mark that remains, the winningest basketball player of all time. Right. And we're gonna look at both sides of this story. Boston has made a tremendous strides to the present. It has. There were issues that took place in the city, i.e. busing in the 70s, that were just absolute administrative catastrophes. If you're familiar with the busing disaster, which is included in the Departed, okay, by Martin Scorsese, based in Boston, which gives you a glimpse. Also, check out All Souls, written by Michael Patrick McDonald, family story from Southie. We'll have to get that. All Souls is just a tremendous book, kind of about a family. Read that in a sociology class that I took at Cape Cod Community College years back. One of the greatest classes I've ever taken in my life, frankly. Shout out to Professor Cordill. So All Souls is just an outstanding book. Again, about a family from Southie. Folks might be more familiar with books like Black Mass and the movie Black Mass, starring Johnny Depp about Whitey Bulger, right? That's how but All Souls is about just more than the crime saga, right? A lot of people will know Whitey Bulger and Southie and his story, and Boston in the 80s, 90s, the FBI takedown of, Italian organized crime in the same city where they were working with the Irish organized crime. That's a notable story. But All Souls gives you the community perspective, and particularly the busing perspective. I learned a tremendous amount. And I had, being an African American, being from the tri-state area, my family was in Boston during the busing disaster. So I had very strident feelings about just Boston, race relations, and then busing. But I learned a tremendous amount. And the bottom line is this: the busing disaster was an administrative failure of epic proportions. Were there ethnic tensions in Boston? There's ethnic tensions in Boston and New York and Baltimore, in every city. Okay, where demographics, and communities break down along racial lines. Those tensions are there. They've been there since time immemorial. They're going to continue to be there. And you know what? In cities, people work past them to work together because we're all there. Nobody's going anywhere. All right, and they make it work, and that's the beauty of society. It's the beauty of American culture. It's the beauty of global culture. Cities, concentrations of people from various backgrounds in one place where we are forced to work together, and we show what we can do together, by and large, for the most part. Yes, it's not all perfect and sunshine and rainbows, but a lot is positive and good and uplifting and empowering. You meet people, you connect with people, you meet your life partners, you meet lifelong friends, all of those things contribute to society, on and on and on, in cities. Different people living together. Okay. What does this have to do with Jaylen Brown, folks? Okay, what it has to do with Jaylen Brown is, first of all, we're talking about the history of race relations in Boston. And that ties into, yes, I said it ties into, for a third time, I will say it ties into this Jaylen Brown disaster. There is a racial and cultural component to it, period. Come with different views. I'm saying what I'm saying. There is a racial and cultural component, period, to this matter. And it connects to the checkered past of Boston when it comes to race relations. Busing, which is on the Mount Rushmore of Boston's checkered past relative to race relations. Busing, which was an administrative catastrophe, not a man-made, community-made catastrophe, but an administrative catastrophe that played its way out in the communities of Boston, where you took, and I mentioned the books All Souls by Michael Patrick McDonald, which I highly recommend you read when you have time. Find it on Audible, read it cover to cover, paperback. You will not be disappointed. All right, and what that book begins with is two facts that I, as a common person from the Commonwealth, did not know. Number one, South Boston, during the busing era and before, had the highest concentration of impoverished white Americans of any place in the country. It was a poor community. I know what it is today. It was a poor community. You have poor communities all over the place. And that you know what I mean? Larry Bird grew up poor. Plenty of people grew up poor. Just to note, South Boston, all right, was the poorest, was the largest poor white community in the country at this time. Okay. There were serious economic challenges. That's one. Two, South Boston, during the busing era, Whitey Bulger era, so on and forth, had the highest rate of unreported crime any place in the country. Okay, so you want to talk about Boston's history relative to race relations? You took the community that had the highest needs, who happened to be white, South Boston. You took the community with the highest needs of people who happened to be black, Roxbury, and you had them switch. That's what you did. That's busing in a nutshell. You didn't take the communities that had the highest resources in Boston, which is a city. Harvard's endowment is well over $50 billion. Harvard is, of course, in Cambridge, which is, of course, in Boston. MIT, Boston College, right? You have well-to-do people who are black. You have well-to-do people that are white. And those people send their kids to school somewhere in the city. You didn't take those schools and have them switch. Okay? Your high-achieving schools that happen to be white, your high-achieving schools that happen to be black. You didn't have those schools switch. You had the highest need community that happened to be white in South Boston, highest need community that happened to be black in Roxbury, and you said those guys switch, make it work. That's busing. And of course, what happened, okay, was an out-and-out disaster that embarrassed the city and affected many lives. Okay? Shout out to All Souls. Okay? Red Sox being the last team. You know, I'm speaking some, right? We were just talking about what it is. Red Sox being the last team in Major League Baseball to integrate. That's a fact. Okay? So these are things the city has grappled with, been grappling with, and I can say coming to, when I moved here in 93, late 93, going into 94, perception of Boston, these things, how you treated Bill Russell, South Reds, you know what I mean? And just New England is different than the tri-state area. It's different. It's a different culture. It is. People a little bit more aloof, I find, than the tri-state area. Okay. In certain areas, not everywhere, but certain areas. Right. So, right. This is my perception coming in. I will say, over the years, progress. Okay, you have, right, leading fit, Alex Cora, Joe Mazzulla, Gerard Mayo, even that 1 year was a disaster, right? The players on the teams, diversity, willingness to speak to, social justice matters. So there's been progress. Okay, Boston has a right to be Boston. Doesn't mean you have a right to be, discriminatory, prejudice in any direction, but, Boston is Boston. It's not New York. It's not Philly. It's not D.C. It's Boston. And there has been, I'll say that again, tremendous progress over the years to make the city, more welcoming and accepting of people from all backgrounds. Right? Okay. How does this relate to Jaylen Brown? All right. It relates to Jaylen Brown in that trading him to the Philadelphia 76ers for a broken down star, 2 first-round draft picks and 2 second-round draft picks is the textbook definition of negligence. It's negligent. And when you say to yourself, how do intelligent people, i.e. Brad Stevens, i.e. the Boston Celtics, their front office, right? How do the Boston Celtics, smartest guys in the room, do something like this? Put themselves in this position. The trade is terrible from the basketball standpoint. You got little to nothing for Jaylen Brown. You've given the Philadelphia 76ers an MVP candidate to go along with their perennial all-star and rising star. So you've given the Sixers a big three. You've given it to them. And they didn't give you very much back in return. A couple picks and a star that doesn't want to be in Boston. So where is the benefit for the Celtics? There's no benefit in terms of the team. And now you can do all of the backtracking, explaining, but and these narratives that I'm hearing just dig you deeper, right? This is a losing deal basketball-wise. I mean, if and when Paul George leaves, you can say we opened up some salary cap space for somebody that can want to come to Boston. Okay. That doesn't excuse the fact that you got nothing in return for Jaylen Brown, a very valuable asset, right? So we got Paul George to match the contracts, yada, yada, yada. Paul George is going to leave, so then we're just going to be, so now I have all this cap space. And so now who wants to come to Boston to compete, who wants to come to Boston to start over with Jason Tatum? That's your pitch. Who wants to come to Boston, a city that Kevin Garnett had reservations about, but Kevin Garnett was in the end of his career and wanted to compete for a championship. So, those reservations, were pushed aside, and he came to Boston. And he won a championship. So who's the next person that's going to do that to partner up with JT? And if JT can't find a partner, which is well within the realm of possibility, who says JT wants to hang around anyway? By himself. Right? There's it's not a statistic, it's a story about people that work in think tanks. Right? High level people, the Ivies, the small, intelligent people, however they get there. And they go to this think tank to work really hard on these particular, right, social problems. This story, in and of itself, begs the question that are think tanks going the way of the dodo bird with artificial intelligence? That's we'll see. Mm. All right, it's getting out of hand here, folks. It's getting out of hand. I gotta. You know what I mean. First of all, I gotta. We're gonna get this other graphic up there for you, Brian. I don't even know if I need to get the graphic because we got two guys in there. Okay, let me just read this quote here. Even though Jaylen Brown was talking about himself for MVP, the Celtics did not feel like Jaylen had the best season on their team. They felt that Derek White had a better season. That was reported by Brian Windhorst, who obviously, Wendy's not just gonna. So he has a source. Let me just let the folks. Let me let the folks know. I'm just gonna give you guys, as I let the people in the chat. That was an actual reported statement. The Celtics let that get out. The Celtics let that get out. That they didn't feel that Jaylen Brown had as good a season as Derek White this last season. They didn't feel Jaylen Brown had as good a season. What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song. I will try not to sing out of key. Oh, baby, now shout out to the Wonder Years, folks. Shout out to the awesome 80s, any 80s babies out there. Are we in middle school? Are we in the middle school cafeteria? What are we doing here? What Celtics personnel could feel safe in their job telling Brian Windhorst that? It has to come from the top. It's so outlandish and preposterous and ridiculous that that you even said it. Never mind that it was leaked and then reported. I can't see that coming from anybody but the top of the management to let that go. That would have to be vetted with Brad Stevens before that got out. And in that context, now we're just arguing at a middle school cafeteria. Or even worse, we're throwing food. You know what I mean? Because you didn't sit next to me in class, or you promised me your fruit roll up and you didn't come deliver, all right? Or you said that I was your best friend, but then when we were in art class, you said that so and so else was your best friend. Before you said I was your best friend. So now we got an issue. I don't like you and you don't like me. And, we're in middle school, so we don't understand that when you do feel some type of way, the best thing to do first is step back rather than stepping forward to give yourself some distance. You know what I mean? So you can think a second or two and to stop them from stealing on you. So better to take that step back, think, and then give yourself some defensive cushion, right? Rather than stepping forward right into the mix when you might not be ready to tussle. But your mind is not developed for whatever, when you're going through your adolescence, you're a rumspringer. So it takes time to understand that. But that's how the Boston Celtics are conducting themselves right now. The smartest guys in the room. We're going to lower ourselves to that level. I don't know if JB, because honestly, folks, you know what I mean? We're gonna keep it, you know what I mean? I gotta sit down. I know JB and Stephen A are having they're going through their go through. I know JB has been on Twitch. I got it, you know what I mean? So it made me, I'm happy JB on Twitch. I got a little Twitch, you know what I mean? So he was, and he's speaking his truth, you know what I mean? He's cutting out the middlemen, and he's giving you the straight talk. All right. I got all that. I got it. All right. And so words are being said and things are all right, good. But if you are the Celtics and you're the adult, I'm a teacher, I'm a referee. I set the temperature in the classroom. I set the temperature on the court. And that's just the bottom line. Took me some time to understand, but it is what it is. Okay? Kid, you can come in, bad attitude, all right, multiple redirections. You can get all what's the point of school? Why are we doing this? You all the deflections, all the negative attention getting that you want. All right. You can do all of that to have me shift into classroom management mode rather than direct instruction mode. I got to manage before I can teach. All right. I shift over, then I have to come back. Okay. But all the while, okay, I'm controlling the thermostat in the classroom. If I elevate with the student, then it's going to get hotter. Okay. If I stay the same, that's going to maintain the same. If I get lower and become more calm, cool, and collected, then it's going to get even cooler in the room. I control the temperature. Same thing refereeing. How many times you question a call, how many times you say and one, how many times, you shrug your shoulders, give me the side eye, smack your lips. You know what I mean? All of that, man. Call me out my name, rest of that stuff. Okay? I control the temperature. And the moment I drop down to your level, all bets are off. You're not going to, and things, so then I drop to your level, then you continue to go a level lower, then I continue to go a level, and then we're on a slippery slope all the way down to the bottom, and who knows where it's going to end up. And that's why you see these unfortunate situations, at youth events and just in general. A lot of times, the more at youth events is because you don't have the infrastructure at those events. You won't see anything like that at Pete's Jam. I tell you that much. The live period is coming up for my young people that's on the that's on the come up. The live period is coming up. Exciting time. The EYBL, the Pete's Jam is coming up. Yeah, so that's when the rankings are established. All right, you come to Pete's Jam with this ranking, but you can lose that ranking. If somebody else, usurps you. And it's not the end of the world to lose a ranking when you're a teenager, so on and forth. I know you want to make the McDonald's All-American game. You want to be a burger boy or burger girl. I get all that. So you're competing. All right, but just remember, Steph Curry, not ranked. but you're competing. I get it. So we're going into that window. But yeah, you're not going to see it get out of hand at E-Way because Nike is putting the money in. You have the security checkpoints. You have the security in place. They're not having it. They're not having it, which is a part of the reason Nike has a preponderance, a majority of the top 100 players on their circuit. You know, their circuit, you know, they invest. Now, the investment is there for Adidas and it's there for Under Armour as well, you know, mirroring what Nike has. That's one of the things I notice. Okay, you're going to be on courts. They're going to be full-length courts. We're going to have, you know, good spacing on the baseline, on the side. It's not going to be a little bandbox, you know, where, you know, you can't play a full speed game because, you know, you're in a little bandbox. People's feet are on the court because there's no sidelines. No. We're going to do the investment, okay, to have a proper game, okay? And if things do go sideways, security is going to be right there, just like they are at the NBA game. It's not going to escalate beyond a certain point. It's not. Shout out to the late, great David Stern, right? Yeah. We ain't going to have it. We are not going to have it. We're going to say it, and then we're going to enforce it. And there's going to be a decorum as I you know reach out, see what people are doing. There's going to be a decorum. There's going to be a respectfulness. Yeah. Right? What does this have to do with JB again? How did we get here? The Boston Celtics are out here acting, you know, like a petulant child, an angry adolescent. Right? Derek White had a better season than Jaylen Brown. You're going to allow that information to get to Wendy. To do what exactly? Are we you know, is this Lao Tzu, the art of war? If your enemy is of fickle temper, annoy him. Is that what we're doing now? But what's the advantage gain? Relative to the art of war, you have an enemy that has a fickle temper. You intentionally, okay, upset them in order for them to do something rash for you to capitalize on. Right? That's the strategic advantage. What is the strategic advantage for the Boston Celtics of letting this malarkey into the public sphere? Everybody knows Derek White did not have as good a year as Jaylen Brown. Is not the same type of level of player as Jaylen Brown, even though Derek White and that might be, again, because now that I think about it, what you also said by putting this nonsense into the ether is what you also said is, hey, Jaylen Brown, remember that guy that was picked for the Olympic team and you weren't? That's what you also did. That's the subliminal in that Derek White ridiculousness. Not just because it makes absolutely no sense on the surface of it, but Jaylen Brown would remember and be reminded that, hey, yeah, Team USA, which I was more than good enough to play for, even though I'm not a Nike guy, but you're going to come with Derek White when you need a player. On my own team, nonetheless, who clearly is not the same player as me. You pulling from the John Stockton, Isaiah Thomas, all right, bag. 20 some odd years later. Crazy. 30 some odd years later, 2024. So yeah, you know, that gives, you know, and this is about 2 hours into the pod, and you know, gonna be another hour at least, you know, because we haven't even started talking about the World Cup. Never mind what's going on in the culture, so on and forth. But that adds another layer to this that seems to go beyond the Boston Celtics, right? Right, Jaylen Brown has gone toe to toe with the corporate state, if we just call it what it is. When you tussling back and forth with Nike, talking about I'm not afraid of your resources. Okay, you've gone beyond the Celtics. You know, I don't know if you've gone beyond the NBA, but you're certainly at that level now. When you're talking about the Nikes of the world, okay, Nike, in all likelihood, surpasses the NBA. Okay, so somebody's going to stand up to us. Somebody's going to talk to us that. Oh no, 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 no. Can't have that. Can't have that. We. Huh? Celtics trade Jaylen Brown in the cover of night for 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a player that's not going to be with the team, who has diminished trade value. I mean, what is going on? I mean that and again, beyond the vast idiocy of the deal, right? You're not getting an equal player, skill wise. Getting a player that's that's older, injury prone, checkered background with the PEDs, and doesn't want to stay. Hasn't committed to the team, right? It's not computing, as I've said numerous times in the 2 hours that the pod has been going on, and as we kind of wind down this, because there are other things to talk about in the NBA, and we can talk about Team USA, so on and forth, right? When intelligent people do something that's stone stupid, those are times when you really, you know what I mean? Because obviously they didn't become stone stupid overnight. And they're, in all likelihood, not that naive. So what are they really doing? Is what you kind of have, your mind goes to. What are they, right? Somebody, folks, let's be clear on this. A doggone 5th grader, a 7th grader, a 9th grader, 11th grader on 2K would not make this trade. But what are we talking about here, folks? There's nobody that plays 2K in any level of competitiveness that would make this deal. Even a novice 2K, somebody that's new on the sticks, would be, and if they were in team mode, or if they, somebody, you want me to trade you Jaylen Brown for Paul George and 2 first-round picks? Did you even just say that? This is like a 10, 11-year-old. And we have people being paid millions and millions of dollars that have brought this forth. No. And what I'm trying to, I'm looking here, I'm looking there, but folks, the thing is that's this deal works for Jaylen Brown. It's a good deal for him. He goes to a contender. He's in the Northeast. He's in, Philly, about the same size of Boston, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe a little, you know what I mean? But right in the Northeast, Boston, New York, Philly, DC. He's from Georgia, so he's, you know what I mean, a little bit closer to the DMV, right? University of Pennsylvania is in Philly, right? So he's an educator, he's an academic. He's going to have that academic outlet. Speaking of which, this is difficult for Boston. He was very involved in the Bridge program that supports inner city youth. Talking about bringing Black Wall Street to Boston, economic empowerment for communities of color. So all that's going to Philly. They could certainly use it. We needed it in Boston. That wasn't considered, in this deal. It wasn't. Okay. This goes back to Cleveland, right? When we traded IT, right after a tremendous year. And Chris, you mentioned that you did trade IT for Kyrie, though. You got, so I understand the loyalty part, but you got Kyrie when it was supposed to work. But Kyrie is Kyrie, and it didn't. The Kyrie before Jason Kidd and the Kyrie after Jason Kidd is night and day, right? But I remember in that situation, LeBron James said, "Just bring him to camp." Like, he was furious. He was 10 toes down. I'm not coming back. You're coming to camp. We're not releasing you. You're coming to camp. You can sit out. You can be mad. You're coming to camp. Right? Remember this in The Last Dance where Scottie Pippen sat out over his contract to a certain, and then, he finally, he sat out for a time. And at that particular point in time, this is pre-player empowerment, and owners would just no. And they were lockstep. You're going to play your contract out. You signed the contract. We learned in The Last Dance, that Scottie Pippen needed Rich Paul, or he needed somebody because the deal he signed, and he had family that needed help, so he signed a lickety split deal. Rather than, and that's the other thing. You look at it, like these players that are in the financial pinch. Take out some loans, low interest loans. I mean, obviously, you're not going to take a 10% in. You're not going to take out $10 million with 10, but take out some loans to cover your family expenses for the time. And then you get the contract you deserve and just pay the loans back. I don't, financial people, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But Scottie rushed into a deal that was terrible in the long term. Magic Johnson rushed into a deal, said he wanted to be a Laker for life, signed a 25-year contract with $25 million. And you know what happened? Jerry Buss let him out of that contract. It was insane. I can't even imagine. I know Magic's agent wasn't in the room, probably out late, moving and grooving, feeling it. I want to be a Laker for life. I'm going to sign a $25 million contract, a 25-year contract for $25 million. I'm a Laker for life. Yay. Then the financial people just look at you like crickets. I understand the emotion of it and you feeling good and you can, but you could still be, and the Magic has been with the Lakers for life, but you can also get your market value while being with the Lakers for life. And so you make the money that you deserve, and the Lakers make, 10x that, and everybody wins. Versus you signing essentially a college, scholar, and it's like a college scholarship in those times. Right? Which we now realize the college players the scholarships were pennies in terms of their actual worth. So Magic Johnson, 25 years, $25 million, agreed to play for pennies of his actual worth. And then Jerry Buss came through and said, we're going to let you out of this. We're not going to make this a huge issue. Let's keep Showtime going. And they did, and it continued to go. Right? Kyrie wanted out of Cleveland, just bring him back. So point with JB, he's going to come back. He's going to be mad. It's going to be a tense environment. Again, it'd be less tense if you had Jrue Holiday. Somebody like Jrue Holiday. It's still going to be tense. All right. And the tension might be years, and it might be tense for years. So what? So what? Was the locker room tense for the 2004 Los Angeles Lakers? It's very tense. It's very tense. Okay. And they made it to the NBA Finals. Lost to an upstart Detroit Pistons team. I picked the Pistons that year based on what they had. They had an actual team and they could match up. Lakers, had been the champions and yada, yada, yada. And they didn't go to the finals in 2003. They brought in Malone and Peyton, for 2004. Kobe had his criminal trial. Season was derailed. Kobe and Shaq were feuding. You know, Kobe and Malone got into it. Said he made a pass at his wife. Right? They made it to the finals, folks. With all that turmoil, the finals. There was no reason whatsoever for the Boston Celtics to rush to trade Jaylen Brown. None. Not only did they rush to trade Jaylen Brown, they got next to nothing in return. Nothing. Okay? I am highly skeptical of Paul George fitting in Boston, wanting to be in Boston, playing for extended time in Boston. This reminds me of when Lamar Odom was traded to Dallas. After he was involved in the Chris Paul trade, and that was, he couldn't get over that, which you look back and you say, so what? Lamar Odom wanted to stay in LA, but he was offended. Man offended harder to get through than a fortified city. He was offended. And so, he trade me. I won't play here anymore. So they traded him to Dallas, and he didn't work out in Dallas, and he was out of the league. Okay. Period. So Paul George, he wanted to play with Embiid. Now he's not playing with Embiid. Does he want to play with Jason Tatum? I don't know. I don't know if Paul George, who's a California guy, had the Boston Celtics high on his wish list. I don't know. It doesn't seem like he did. Okay, so he's here for a hop, skip, and a jump, and then he's gone. And now Jason Tatum is like Will Smith in that episode, a Fresh Prince, that heartfelt episode of Fresh Prince when he's kind of all by his lonesome. Okay, you with JT and JB, the Celtics were a championship team. They were in the conversation if you put the correct pieces around them, which Brad Stevens did, bringing in Derek White, giving up the draft capital to give them that more pass-first point guard because it wasn't Marcus Smart, right? Then they have the disaster against the Miami Heat. This is in the year after. This is in the year with the MA disaster, okay, which there's connections to MA here, right? Again, in Brad Stevens and his difficulty dealing with assertive people who happen to be black. Now, let's be clear, the MA situation, MA was wrong in terms of what he did and how he treated people and deserved to be disciplined. Okay? Didn't have the right to treat people how he was treating them. And so Brad Stevens was completely justified in disciplining him. Okay? All right? So it's not a one-to-one MA to Jaylen. Let's make that clear. It's not a one-to-one. Right? MA was wrong for how he conducted himself relative to other employees. And MA can, right? Very firm on some things, maybe not as flexible. My coach, Tom Thibodeau, known to be the same way. Fine. Okay, but there was a rift there before the MA got himself in trouble in terms of his conduct. That's my view. That hasn't been delved into, but that's my view. And now we have with JB, there's clearly a rift that ends with so yeah. 2 hours and 15 minutes. Thanks for the reminder on the intro, Chris. Got this has been a disaster. This Jaylen Brown trade saga been a disaster since the Celtics or somebody in that organization tipped off Bill Simmons a couple weeks back, and he came out Because prior to that, Celtics organization through Brian Windhorst, they're not going to trade Jaylen Brown. They're not in the Giannis sweepstakes. That was the narrative, and that held for a week and change. And then Bill Simmons comes through and says, "Listen, my view, Celtics are in on Giannis, and they're in the sweepstakes." That let the genie out of the bottle. Okay, so that's when you get on this road. Oh, really? And now the Piranhas, the Sharks, whoever are going to circle that. That story gains more traction. The Celtics could have just stepped back and been like, we're going to no comment the situation, but they became part of the conversation. They said, we're open to trades for Giannis, and Brad and Jaylen Brown is in the mix. Just Jaylen Brown, not JT. Okay, so now you've established it is it's what it is. Again, Jaylen for Giannis, just like Luka for Giannis or Luka for Anthony Edwards. Those deals make sense. They're even. But it is, disrespectful. It's hurtful, is what it is. As you become an adult, you don't say what the kids are able to say and express through tears. You don't say you hurt my feelings. Because if you did say that, you'd be saying it all the time in life as an adult. People are hurting your feelings all the time. And so you learn how to process that in a different way as you get older. But the point is, what you can't process is the emotion behind it. As we don't process that like, you hurt my feelings. When you hurt a kid's feelings, they cry. Now, should adults be crying every 3 or 4 seconds? No, they shouldn't be crying. But you should be crying on occasion while acknowledging that your feelings were hurt, and letting that out. Letting it out. All right, and so in Jaylen being in the Giannis trade, there were some hurt feelings. Okay, and as we can see, as we've gotten to this point of just it absolutely disintegrating, those hurt feelings were not able to get out. All right, and so when you can't express your pain vis-a-vis tears, you express your pain vis-a-vis anger. Okay, many times. Okay, we don't necessarily have the self-awareness, the strategies of the time to step back and deconstruct a hurt, a disrespect and injustice. Okay, and that further, and that because so we don't because of a time situation, right? Whatever the reason may be, maybe we're reticent, but it's not addressed is the point. Okay, and that hurt remains, and then it becomes anger and a desire, and the anger leads to a desire for vengeance. But again, folks, what are we starting with? We're starting with hurt. It hurt Jaylen Brown's feelings, and rightfully so, that he was included in trade talks for Giannis Antetokounmpo, no matter how great a player that Giannis is, as he is constantly in the one that's involved in trade talks when he is the equal of his teammate Jason Tatum. They're equal. JB, JT, 1A, however you want to do it. It's not a Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen situation. All right? It's an Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars situation. That's what JT and JB has always been. It's been Isaiah and it's been Joe, period. It's not Michael and Scottie. Right? You could even say Shaq and Kobe. 1A. One, however you want to distinguish. But the point is they're winning. You know who didn't have a problem distinguishing? Steph Curry. When Kevin Durant wanted to take his talents to his team, Chef Curry said, all right, you're making the team better, let's cook. I ain't gonna worry about one, whose team. No, we gonna bypass all that foolishness and just play winning basketball. And they did. Celtics not able to bypass the foolishness. Jaylen Brown's feelings were hurt. He lashed out. Celtics could not be the adults in the room. Just like a referee who makes a bad call, the player or the coach, complains, then you tee the player or the coach up for complaining about the bad call that you called in the first place. A good official not doing that. Good official going to hear them out, going to recognize they did make a bad call. They did cost a team a possession. All right. So they are rightfully upset and animated. Give that voice, give it expression, give it time. Not a tremendous amount of time. And there's, you're not going to call me out my name. You're not going to say my mama wears combat boots, but you can vent for a second or two because I missed that call. Go ahead and vent. And then we got to keep moving and the game goes on. The next 50-50 call, questionable call, you balance it out down the stretch and you move it, right? And we keep it going. That's good officiating. Bad officiating, I make a bad call. Players and the coaches rightfully question the bad call. Then I give them a technical for questioning the bad call that I made. That's bad officiating. Okay? Or bad management. I offend somebody. That person is hurt and responds because I offended them, which I shouldn't have done in the first place. I.e. the Celtics letting this trade get the light of day in the first place. Not having the skill of the late, great Jerry West, who manufactured the Paul George trade to the Clippers. That put them in a position to win a championship in 2020 in the bubble when they're up 3-1 against Denver Nuggets. Let them come all the way back to win. All right, so Jerry West, real trades happen in silence. Yes, they gave up a lot. They gave up picks. They gave up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but they had a chance to win a championship right there for them. All right, before PG 13 and Kawhi got in their injury grind. You didn't know about the trade till it happened. Okay, you want to trade Jaylen Brown for Giannis? Do I agree with it? No. If you want to do it, I shouldn't know about it until it happens. Not how the Celtics conducted themselves. Yes, they offended Jaylen Brown. Yes, he came back at them. And what did the Celtics do? Instead of being the adults in the room and mending that fence and doing things in a more professional fashion going forward, i.e. communicating with the player and not letting your trade intentions get out, which reduces your leverage and creates a more tense environment. Celtics didn't do that. They want to double down and triple down, okay, with the middle school cafeteria table. Oh, you say this, I'm going to say that. You say that, I'm going to say this. I say this, you say that. You say that, and we just, what are we doing here? All right, and when you unpack, whether it be the middle school drama or this Celtics calamity, it comes back to, something that individual felt was offensive. You offended me. Maybe unintentionally, maybe intentionally, but that's where we started. Okay, and if we had got our arms around it way back then, we wouldn't be all the way this far down the slippery slope where we are. All right, if you had the courage, like the manager for Japan, to admit in the moment, clearly, definitively, I made this error to let the team down. Okay, and I want that established. So if we got fingers to being pointed, you point them at me because it's on me. Okay, that's leadership. Which is sorely and surely lacking here in the Commonwealth. As what? Celtics slam the door shut on their championship window. And they do so, as Frank Sinatra would say, not in a shy way. Okay, they slam the door shut on their championship window emphatically. And no doubt confident, firm in their analytics and or their instincts, both of which I firmly, fiercely, and absolutely reject. Jaylen Brown to the Philadelphia 76ers for Chi Chi Beans. All right, folks. How's everybody doing out there in television land? We here. We in the building. 2 and change on this check-in. And we got we got no end in sight here, folks. We got NBA we got to get to. Appreciate license to Mel on the IG check-in. Appreciate those rocking with us on the Facebook. Chris on the YouTube. Twitch is going strong. We're in the building, folks. Hope your summer's going well. Right? Hope things are good. We're going to lighten it up for a second. Then we're going to get back to basketball. Probably conclude with the World Cup. Right? Y'all still got time. We got what do we got? A 2-hour difference right now because we turn the clocks forward. So it's still Bobby Bonilla. What is it? 11:30. You got a half an hour. Got a half an hour left, folks. Right? How y'all doing out there, yo? How y'all doing out there? I didn't need the yo after that. I need the yo. How y'all doing out there? Happy Bobby Bonilla Day. Huh? This is one of the days, folks. This is one of the days, my best days of the year. I gotta say it is. This was the school year that wouldn't end. We had the blizzard of 2026, usurped the blizzard of 78, 2-week February vacation, which wasn't much of a vacation because we didn't have power till Thursday, and it was brick cold. So yeah, school went. A lot of the districts were last Friday. We was in school on Monday in New Beige. Finished out our school year. It was a good day. Had the bouncy house for the Utes, and all activities. Played catch with them. They like to do that. It's good. Shout out to the Sandlot. Then they had some catering. Had a cookout for the staff in terms of packing things up, getting the classroom, prepared for the next journey. So Monday was a good day, but that was the last day of school. So yesterday was my first day of summer. Got a chance to recognize a community member, retired from the police department. It was an SRO for many years, had a very large impact in the community. So that was awesome. And then I look up, and folks, it's Bobby Bonilla Day. So it came swiftly this year. Generally, we get out of school in mid-May, mid-June. So we're getting out of school like the 14th, 15th. Folks, we were in school to the 29th. So it was a long haul, folks. Nonetheless, it's all gravy right now because we made it. I hope the students are getting off to a good start with their summer. Staff members were taking a couple of days to rest, to just adjust to the schedule, work at our own pace. Plenty to do, but we can do it at our own pace rather than being locked in, do certain segments of the day, which is a beautiful thing. Folks, Bobby Bonilla Day. It's been 27 years since this man played. You're going to party like it's 1999, folks. It's been 27 years since Bobby Bo was out there for the Amazings. This man is going to get his 1.19 mils, which remains a lot of money. You want to make that payment, and y'all just going to keep. I got that. I invested here, invested there. I live comfortably. Okay, because Bobby Bonilla understood. Shout out to Billy Corbin. Shout out to Broke. Who was the Jets linebacker? Got to get his name. Bart Scott took his talents to be more. or took his talents from B Moore to the Jets. I think that's how it went. But yeah, and 30 for 30 broke. Bart Scott makes it clear. Pro athletes out there getting your money now. Same thing for college athletes out there getting your money. It's very simple. You can be king for a year, or you can be prince for the rest of your life. It's just that simple. You can be king for a year, champagne campaign, all that stuff, or you can be prince for the rest of your life. So Bobby Bonilla clearly picked the latter. Bobby Bonilla said, I'm going to be prince for the rest of my life. All right. Now. It's a beautiful thing. So we got the 1.19 mils as I get it straightened out here. 1.19 mils. Every July 1st, we're going to 2035 on Bobby Bonilla Day. So we got 8 more years. 9 more years as I get my calendar right. It's 2036. We got 9 more years of Bobby Bonilla Day. All right. So that's a beautiful thing right there. 9 more years of Bobby Bonilla. And so I'm looking forward. Matter of fact, I'm thankful we got another decade. I'm thankful we got another decade of this because, gotta think to myself, man, what am I gonna do? I'm glad it's another decade. I don't want to even imagine what I would do without Bobby Bonilla Day. Okay, folks. So just looking at the forecast, we're looking good. We just have a chance of thunderstorms. I don't like that. We've got a baseball game. Hopefully those got a chance of T-storms on Saturday for the 4th. So I don't like that. I don't mind the high of 88. But those chance of T-storms need to get out from midday to, the T-storms happen to be right when the ball game is. So it's got to get them earlier in the day, real quick in the morning, T-storms, and then it gets hot, everything dries up, or end of the day, midnight, which we don't even want then because people are out and about. So hopefully the T-storms pass for the 4th of July. Folks, we in the building. We moving and grooving. Sand City Sports. By and for the fans. Okay. Couple more things. So we got the Lakers. I'm gonna hold on the Lakers. Signing Walker Kessler, which I agree with. LeBron James saying he's out, which I feel was, started talking about wanting to resign. Then once he shifted from that, saying he needs all his money, it was like probably going to be out. Okay. Let's just get this right. I got the art that I need. Hope everybody out there is doing well in television land. Sand City Sports, by for the fans. Let's get it. All right. As we wind down, we're going to get to the Lakers moving forward. But we can't, we'd be remiss in not recognizing USA. USA. This is the team. USA advancing to the round of 16, 2-0 victory over Bosnia-Herzegovina in San Fran. Game's going to be on Monday in Seattle. This World Cup has been a joy. Let's take a look at the schedule for tomorrow. My friends are gearing up, which lets me know in the chat, which Portugal is in the mix. Portugal is going to be in the mix. So we have the USA and Spain at USA and Spain. Let me get my facts right here. We got Spain and Austria at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Portugal and Croatia at 7 o'clock. Okay, my buddy is amped up for that. And then Switzerland and Algeria at 11 o'clock. Followed by, on Friday, Australia and Egypt at 2. Cabo Verde and Argentina. People are going to be going wild at 6. Speaking of which, they instituted a curfew in Brockton, City Champions, where AJ DeBanza is from. Instituted a curfew of 10 o'clock. Everything's got to close at 9:30. So shortly after the game, have to close, and then everybody's got to be inside 10 o'clock. Been getting a little boisterous is the word I'll use. Been getting a little boisterous in Brockton with the World Cup. So Argentina and Cabo Verde, and then Ghana and Colombia tomorrow at 9:30. But today, because it is now Thursday on the East Coast, Spain, Austria 3, Portugal, Croatia, big game. All right. You're saying the Commonwealth, you got the longest bridge in Massachusetts. Something's going on Facebook, man. Just got kicked out of Facebook, and I don't know for what. Happened the last episode. I've been cooking. Next thing you know, you're talking about we removed your episode. For what? I haven't. What community standards? All right, so they stopped it, but then it says page has no issues. But you shut down my doggone show. So you stopped the show for community standard violation, but then you said I don't have good news, but you stopped the episode, doggone it. So now you're not going to get slice of life, possibly. We still rocking and rolling on IG. Good. YouTube is good. Twitch is good. All right, let's go. Booted me out of Facebook for community standards violation. They said ain't no violations. Why don't you verify before you boot me? Verify. Trust but verify. Okay. Been a joy to watch. Very engaging. Numbers are through the roof. People are tuning in, loving soccer. Excellent format. Games across the country. Games in Mexico. Games in Canada. All right. And now we see the opposite side of this feel-good story. Not this is the opposite side, because this is a tremendous feel-good story. But just myself and many others learning about soccer. Florin Balogun, who was Team USA's leading scorer, alpha male, right? You know, their dynamic striker, right? Their number one wide receiver, essentially. He gets a red card in this match, with 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 and change minutes to go. Oh my goodness. It's only a 1 goal difference. So I'm okay. Now these guys got to come together to win the match, is my thinking. Next thing you know, they get the, go ahead goal, give them that cushion. So I'm like, all right, it's good. Shout out to Jason Smith. Jason Smith show box. What are we doing? Shout out to Jason Smith, the Jason Smith Show, Fox Sports Radio. Shout out to him. Because he comes on after the Odd Couple, and he's saying, and I'm like, we won the game, won the match without the top play. We good. He's like, nah, that red card, crazy. You're out for that game and the next game. What? Why? And they showed the penalty, and this was not no kung fu fighting flagrant 2. It was a flagrant 1. Y'all don't have flagrant 1s and 2s in the World Cup. He stepped on the ankle. Yes, he shouldn't have done it. It was a bad play, but he's, it looked worse than what it was in my view. He's stepping up, and he ends up stepping on the back of the dude's ankle. The dude rolls his ankle. It doesn't look good. Can I see, ejecting him from the game? Yes, I can see, but I can't see ejecting him from that game and the next. That's the bridge too far. They need to have 1 and 2 red cards. They need to have a red card 1 where you're just out for the game, and then a red card 2 where you're out for the game and the next game. That's what soccer needs. Because that penalty did not, to me, elicit or deserve that, leading score, whatever, being out for that game, which is bad enough because they could have come back and won the game, and the entirety of the next game didn't do it for me. Oh. Shout out to Nightcap. I'm seeing my clips here. Unk is already in 4th of July mode. ISO Joe says pretty even swap. Didn't expect that. Which we'll get for you on the screen. Perkins not having it. He stands with me, Forsberg also standing with me on the JB trade. Shout out to Mayor Brandon Scott from B More. Shout out to The Wire, David Simon. Baltimore is the safest it's been in a half century. Shout out.
The big change is as the world has gotten more evil.
We got more evil. The big change. Number of different right? Number of different clips that so one of the Catholic priests, he's pretty strong. Talking about different circumstances and need to stay on a straight and narrow. Okay, now clearly just a lot of reaction. Lots of reaction. Nice to see my cousin scored 31 points in his men's league game. And we were able to get a W. Balanced scoring and got the dub. Okay. Pretty cool. Let's come back to Team USA. I got to Florin Balogun. Striker out. Round of 16 where he's going to be needed. USA. They can still win. Clearly. It's going to hurt, and commentary, that Pulsic's been out. This gentleman's been out. They haven't always played together. They can still win. Is it going to be uphill? Yes. Will they need him? Is he a difference maker? Yes. Can the home crowd and the environment, put them in a position where they win this game? Yes. That is my sincerest hope, clearly. Going with Team USA. Not going to make excuses now, then, they lose the game, they lost the game. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. He's not going to be there. It's not something that you can appeal. Everybody knew the severity of it. Everybody that is involved with soccer, I had no idea. I was just thinking it's a one game adios. Okay, so I a layman that needed to be educated. Shout out to Jason Smith show. Okay, they know they have 4 or 5 days to get ready for the matchup on Monday. Okay, you're shorthanded. Okay, but you're also 10 toes down, loyal to the soil, doing this for the motherland. So I think USA can harness all of those things and go out there and beat Belgium. Then come back at full strength, in the quarterfinals. And the reporting, is saying this Team USA, they might not be the favorite, okay, but they're right there in the running with these other teams. That's been the consistent reporting. So we're going to talk about the Knicks winning the first championship in 53 years, folks. We are, and I got to say this slow, but we're looking at Team USA winning the World Cup in the United States of America. It'd be the greatest sporting achievement in American history. It would usurp the Miracle on Ice. All right. Our prospects in hockey are much stronger than our prospects in soccer have been. For Team USA to win the World Cup in America. This is a program that missed the World Cup, in, what was the last World Cup? It was 26, 22, 18, 14. This is the program that missed the World Cup. Do your Team USA miss the World Cup in either 14 or 18? Which one was it? 14 or 18? They didn't qualify in 18. Right. Missed. Okay. The World Cup before last, Team USA had to stay home. And now we're looking at this team in the running to win the whole thing. Yes, France, juggernaut. Brazil, juggernaut. Team USA, come on. Can get it done. All right. So we're going to be gearing up for Monday in Seattle. Not blaming the refs. I looked at the penalty. I said, it's, just how it looks. You can boot him for the game. But I wouldn't have booted him for the game if I knew it was going to cost him another game. I wouldn't have done that. I would have given him the yellow card, and, maybe given him a couple, that penalty seems too strict. It does. And by the way, the officiating at the World Cup, this World Cup versus previous, has been tremendous from what I've seen. I love how the referees are not going for the flopping. They are not going for the flopping, particularly in the penalty area. No. And we're just playing on. Okay, a push here, a push there, a free kick here, a free kick there. That's all evened itself out. But the refs, from what I'm seeing, are not going for the floppery, particularly in, the penalty area. They're getting that right. Because players are flailing. They're, if it's going to be a penalty kick, the penalty has to be a real. I mean, we have to know that you just truck stick somebody. You know what I mean? You give them that, right? If you're going to get a penalty, then you just clearly truck stick somebody. Not that you should ever do that, particularly, in the head region. But you got to really hook off on somebody. Hit him in the shoulder, hit him in the, gut, whatever. And then we're going to give you a penalty and you're done. But beyond that, no. All right, we're good. And it's time for now slice of life. USA. Big win tonight. Tough penalty, big win. Forward march. All right, folks. Let us discuss. Okay. Let us discuss, as many are discussing. Many are discussing. All right, so I'm interested. We're going to start with Nightcap, and ISO. ISO coming with a different, you know what I mean? He's got it right. You know what I mean? ISO has the right to feel how he feels. It is what it is. Hearing some rumblings, folks. Got them T-storms that's on the way. All right, let's get the T-storms out the way now, so we don't have T-storms for the 4th. Let's go. All right, let's go. So we, you know what I mean? Pretty even swap. That's what ISO was saying. Go ahead.
The wall that the Celtics was getting rid of Jaylen Brown, and we can go a little further depth. But when you heard this news, what our first thing that went through your mind?
Man, you know what? As we've been talking about this lately, I'm like, with all these scenarios that's been coming out about Jaylen Brown getting traded, I didn't really understand why. And for him to get traded, it doesn't surprise me, okay, Ocho. But to send him to Philly for Paul George, obviously Boston's trying to save some money to some degree. You know what I mean? Knowing and understanding that, Ocho, we're going to have to deal with the risk of trading him today. Right. And we understand that. But, hell, come next season, he's going to be looking to re-up and get him another contract. And if we're dealing with this now, we can't, we can't continue to do business like that. So while he's hot, while he's still probably at his highest value.
Joe, we had talked about this. We saw the writing on the wall that the Celtics was getting rid of Jaylen Brown.
Love to see Unc in 4th of July mode getting it. Go ahead, Unc.
But when you heard,
let's see what we can get for him. And I think they got, I think it was a pretty even swap for real.
No.
If you just want me to keep it
Even?
100.
How is even,
Yeah.
Joe?
With Paul George and that injury history,
You get 2 first-round picks.
yeah.
Listen. And what Boston is looking for, okay, I don't want people to have to riffraff between who's 1A and 1B and
Right.
all that. This
They ain't
clearly
riff-raff before.
Listen, yeah, this clearly puts the pressure on Jason Tatum. Hell, without Jason Tatum, if Jaylen Brown could lead us to a 3 seed, if we put some competent pieces around JT, a 2 seed, and we put some competent pieces around JT, him knowing that he can lead us, I just think, man, they really didn't want to deal with Jaylen Brown stuff, bro. Considering all the things that he said, they took an opportunity to be able to get up off for him. Let's see what we can get for him. And I think they got
what you got is Chi beans.
Heard.
All right. Yeah, ISO, he knows his business. He breaks it down and solid player. What I'm trying to say is, ISO is given the in-house, and right, it just became a soap opera, and they wanted to end the soap opera. And I think that's a juvenile thing to do when your soap opera can compete for championships. Okay, and not only can it compete for championships, but you created the soap opera, right? This was a management. This was an administrative disaster. Okay, the administrative approach created the dissension, hard feelings, animus in terms of how you handled this. Okay, and then you say, well, we want to get away from, you created the toxic environment. Okay, so take some accountability for that toxicity first. Okay, and then look at how you can make your team better. Okay, that's where I'm at with it. All right, another view.
I mean, Jaylen Brown's going to get his number retired. 10 years, a championship. Every other Celtic who did that got their number retired. This is a weird ending.
First of all, this is a sad day for the Boston Celtics. And as a former Celtic, I do not approve of this trade. If you're going to trade a guy that's a top 10 player, you at least got to get back a guy that's a top 15, top 20 player. And Paul George is not that. Paul George hasn't been consistently good since I was skinny. And that's been a long damn time. When you talk about Jaylen Brown, your former finals MVP, conference finals MVP, NBA champion, coming off his best season of his career, statistically, leading his team past, defeating all the odds. They were supposed to be in the tanking mode. This team finished second in the East, and I know things didn't work out like it was supposed to as far as the way that the playoff run ended. But at the end of the day, if you're Brad Stevens, to me, he had already lost when he lost the Giannis sweepstakes to the Miami Heat. If you're going to jump off the porch and you're going to make Jaylen Brown available, you got to make sure you pencil in that deal. This is nothing but sloppy seconds, in my opinion. And in the way I see it, he just basically handed the Philadelphia 76ers a trip to the NBA Finals next year.
I mean, Jaylen Brown's going to...
Sixers are going to be dangerous. Yeah. I'm lockstep with Perk. Paul George hasn't been good since Perk was, came right from high school, young Perk playing with the Celtics, 08. Cop D's, strong, you get, it's tough to stay in game shape after you retire, but he hasn't been PG-13 in some years, right? We might have to go back to Indiana, right? He's been a lot of stops, Indiana, Oklahoma City, and Clip, he's gotten old, Father Time, undefeated. Disastrous. Let's continue. Forsberg, incomprehensible. Solve none of your money issues. You don't get better on the court, and I'm just left to wonder what the relationship status with Jaylen Brown was that delivered you to this point where you would make this trade. I agree. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Talking about Hugo and Baylor. Okay, which I don't think we're a bridge too far for Giannis. Fallback option. Top 10 player. Perk said it.
For this package, unless there's something else at play, and whether that's another move or the relationship had frayed to a level that they just could not see a path to reconciliation. And so you take whatever the best is that is out there. But the picks aren't good. Like, if Philly lives up to what they should be with these guys, I mean, Maxi's window is long here. Even 2031, as far out as it seems, like they should still be in the mix here. That swap doesn't seem very attractive right now. You're still in a little bit of cap hell because Paul George makes so much money. I gave them the benefit of the doubt when they decided that Ugo and Baylor were a bridge too far for Giannis. But if that's the case and there was no plan B and this was like the fallback option, like, you can't let it get to that point. You have to take the deal that gets you a top 10 player if you're going to move Jaylen Brown. You don't settle. I've been doing this a long time now, and very rarely, maybe the Kyrie Irving trade, there are very few that just kind of knock me on my backside, and this is one of them. You know, I like to give the Celtics front office the benefit of the doubt, and I'll be very interested to hear their explanation for this trade. I'm very curious if there's anything else lingering. But if this is the trade package for Jaylen Brown, it is almost incomprehensible to me. You solve none of your money issues. You don't get better on the court. And I'm just left to wonder what the relationship status with Jaylen Brown was that delivered you to this point where you would make this trade. Again, maybe there's more to it than we know to this point. But on the surface, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around this trade. I've been doing this a long time now.
Exactly. Translation, this is the smartest guy in the room deal. Meaning, you know, I am who I am. I have this standing. You know, I'm an intelligent person. I'm viewed as an intelligent person. I can see what other people can't see around corners and through walls. And so because I have this sixth sense and you don't, I can make a move that is pitiful, and you just need to trust and recognize, you know, given my allegedly infinite wisdom, that it's going to turn out to be exorbitantly profitable. That's translation. We're the smartest guy in the room. I'm the smartest guy in the room, Brad Stevens. And therefore, what I do, everything I do, including this, just, it's hard to put into words what this is. This red herring, I'll just say that, you know, what it is, fool's gold. This fool's gold is valuable.
Jaylen Brown traded to the Philadelphia 76ers for Paul George, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. Let me begin right here. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it with a freaking passion. This was a salary dump or a contract dump, or define it however you want. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous trade. Paul George is 36 years old, and to save 1 year of money, 1 year of money, Jimmy, is what you're telling me, that George is getting paid for the next 2.
Yep.
Is there any sort of player option or anything after that?
Not that I'm seeing.
So the Celtics just traded a guy that they took with the number 3 pick in the draft, who's been here 10 years, who's MVP of the NBA Finals, wingman to Jason Tatum, if not his equal, pretty damn close. And they traded him to the Philadelphia 76ers for a 36-year-old guy who looks like he's getting near the end. There was a little bit of a resurgence there in the postseason, but a guy who's been a failure pretty much everywhere he's gone since he left Indiana. 2 firsts and 2 seconds. I hate it. It was a money dump. That's all it was. And the Celtics now today are worse than they were yesterday. Jaylen Brown traded
gotta hear this
to
again.
the Philadelphia 76ers for Paul George, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. Let me begin right here. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it with a freaking passion. This was a salary dump or a contract dump, or define it however you want. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous trade. Paul George is 36 years old, and to save 1 year of money, 1 year of money, Jimmy, is what you're telling me, that George is getting paid for the next 2.
Yep.
Is there any sort of player option or anything after that?
Not that I'm seeing.
So the Celtics just traded a guy that they took with the number 3 pick in the draft, who's been here 10 years, who's MVP of the NBA Finals, wingman to Jason Tatum, if not his equal, pretty damn close. And they traded him to the Philadelphia 76ers for a 36-year-old guy who looks like he's getting near the end. There was a little bit of a resurgence there in the postseason, but a guy who's been a failure pretty much everywhere he's gone since he left Indiana. 2 firsts and 2 seconds. I hate it. It was a money dump. That's all it was. And the Celtics now today are worse than they were yesterday.
So there it is. Let me just make sure I don't believe, that's a good place for us to, because that's where I'm at with this. That is where I am at. I mean, we're getting some balance, some here, some there, but 98.5 the hub. Okay, you speaking for me, Cape Cod Kid. That's the view of Sand City Sports. Forsberg, Perk, local guys, Joe, and I don't think Joe was saying it's a good deal. I think Joe was just giving you the inside of the soap opera. And the Celtics have allowed themselves to become a soap opera. That, he's giving you the inside of the soap opera. I think here in Boston, or here in the Commonwealth, I'm not in Boston, I'm on the Cape, obviously. Folks are saying, then don't produce a soap opera. Produce a drama. Produce a serious production. Okay? Rather than one based on jealousy, envy. A soap opera is the lower hanging fruit is what the soap opera focuses on. Okay, it's not, it's not a masterpiece. It's not, a Good Will Hunting. It's not a Shawshank Redemption, right? It's not a No Country for Old Men. It's not an Oscar. Soap opera is the low hanging fruit, right? This is Celtics, Boston. Titletown USA 18 championship. You're supposed to be producing Oscar-worthy films. You're supposed to be on that Pulp Fiction. You're supposed to be on that Forrest Gump, right? Supposed to be on that Life is Beautiful. Supposed to be on that American Beauty. Okay? Right? You name Dallas Buyers Club, 10 Years a Slave, Schindler's List on the more serious side. Okay? That's the Celtics are supposed to be on the Academy Award side. Let me see if I can think of one of my other, I'll say it. Finish with Training Day. Film like Training Day, where Denzel gets the best. I think we can finish with Training Day. Antoine Fuqua, who did the Michael Jackson film. We're looking for Oscar-worthy, organization. We're not looking for the low-hanging fruit soap opera. That's not what we're doing around here. And so, this is emergency pod, SandCity, bye for the fans. Thrilled to be with you. Thanks so much, folks on the socials checked in with me. Chris, of course, the good marinara. You know what I mean? Adding, to the pod and so on and forth, right? And a lot's been said. A lot's going to continue to be said about this. There's so many different angles, so on and forth. But another pillar of this, because, you know, it's potentially so bad that you really could go from feast to famine, in that, like, you know, and the World Cup, it's great. We're enjoying it. It's tremendous. The underdog stories like Cabo Verde that we're seeing, guys, there's two. Pat Riley said it. There's only two things in sports. There's winning and misery. So we're, you know, Team USA is winning. We're in the round of 16. Like, it's going great. I'm Cape Verde, and Cape Verde national team breaks the, you know, it's wonderful. Okay, Uruguay, you had to fly back. Commercial, furious. South Korea, they met you at the airport. Booze. Manager, you got to go. Furious. And then, you know, so the point of fact is, this could be so bad that the Celtics just wipe out their championship window. Well, I can see this. And then it's just not going to work. Tatum's going to be there by himself. He's not going to be able to compete by himself, and he's going to want to leave. You know, and then, you know, then you say, Brad Stevens, you did this. You have to go. There's the potential for this turning out so bad that the Celtics are actually forced to start from scratch. And so, bottom line, end of story, two sides of this. Okay? Full-out disaster that ends the Celtics championship window definitively and compromises the middle and second part of Jason Tatum's career, possibly forcing him to leave Boston and the Celtics to completely start from scratch. Right? That's one. It's a disaster in the short term. It's a disaster in the medium term, and then long term, Jason Tatum leaves, and you're just forced to start from scratch. At which point, then Brad Stevens might also leave, and you just start from nothing. This is a team that won a championship 2 years ago, and they are now on a path to start from nothing, from scratch, based on how this was handled and how it's been resolved today. That's the one scenario for this. There's only two. So that's one. Two, Brad Stevens can see around corners. And he has a piece of information that is unique to him and maybe his inner circle that will flip this. Paul George will leave. They'll get players comparable to Jaylen Brown to create a team. All right, maybe it's a guard, but it's going to need to be two players. It's going to need to be another forward, and then you're going to have what they had before to recreate the Fantastic Four. So the players that you bring in is going to have to be a post player, a wing player, and then a guard. And Brad Stevens, who has the ability to see around corners and through walls, okay, maybe because he had a supporting role in the boys. Brad Stevens alone has that unique knowledge, and this is going to work out. This trading of Jaylen Brown for Chi Beans is going to work out in the Celtics' benefit. Those are the two realities. Disaster that forces the Celtics to start from square one, or Brad Stevens is a genius. We'll see. Sand City Sports is on the disaster side of the line. And I'm not happy about being on the disaster side of the line, but I'm firm on it. Perk said it. It's a sad day. It's an aggravating day in Boston. I wish Jaylen Brown the best in Philly, and I hope the Celtics are able to recover. Yes, sir. Jaylen Brown emergency episode.